This whole center point issue up to here. These people are in the agenda. They need to go. After 1.4, we're going to call item 1.29 and then 1.15, both of which are Center Point Village related issues. And that way you will be here. And we'll just keep everybody here. Nobody has to leave and come back at 10:30. I apologize for the inconvenience, but with this many people, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to be heard. And it is 8:58, and we wait and start on atomic time at 9 o'clock, so get comfortable. Good morning. Kerr County Commissioners Court is now in session. It is Monday, July the 26th at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we will come to order. First thing we have on the agenda is to remind everybody to turn your cell phones off or to at least vibrate so that they don't interrupt the proceedings. And after that, we have public input. Now, public input is the portion of the agenda that we set aside to receive input from the public. It's not output. We don't get to answer your questions at that time, but we certainly are required to listen to what you have to say to us. If you're here about something that is on the agenda, a specific agenda item, we ask that you wait to speak to us when that agenda item is called. It'll be a lot easier and more relevant for everyone if you do it that way. So the first thing I have to ask, is there anyone here that wants to speak to this court? Oh yeah. I'm flustered. Let's stand for the prayer and pledge. Which we led by Mr. Blair.
Lord, we're thankful we live in a free nation where we can gather like this, where we can air our concerns, where we can address those. Help us to remember the golden rule. Be merciful to us, Lord God, and help us to find our way. We ask it in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Now I'm calling. Is there anyone that would like to address the court on an item that is not on the agenda? Very good. And let's proceed on with the agenda. We have several ceremonial things we're going to do. I've made an announcement. I'll just repeat it. We're going to take items 1.1 through 1.4 first, and then I'm going to try to work in all the people here on the Centerpoint Village issue. And we'll do that by considering items 1.29, which is about subdivision rules. And we'll get some background on that, and then we'll move right into 1.15, which is the status of Centerpoint Village. So with that, I'm going to call item 1.1, which is the presentation of the Texas Historical Commission's Distinguished Service Award to the Kerr County Historical Commission. Mr. Blue and
Well, I would like to introduce Julie Leonard. Julie, who runs the Historical Commission, and it does a great job.
She's right there by her cousin, isn't it?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Julie Leonard, Chair of the Kerr County Historical Commission for the past 12 years.
And we appreciate that service.
I think we need a new face up here, but anyway. As you know, the purpose of the Kerr County Historical Commission is to preserve, protect, and promote the historical and cultural resources of Kerr County. This is accomplished by the KCHC initiating programs and projects that create awareness and appreciation of historic preservation and their benefits and uses in the county. Our commission in 2020 had 57 members that contributed over 1,700 hours of volunteer service to the county and state. We were only allowed to meet 5 times because of COVID restrictions last year. Despite this limitation, we managed to still function. Since this is a presentation of the Distinguished Service Award, I'd like to tell you a little about how it's awarded. The DSA award is a 15-page survey that I complete on email. And they have a committee that reviews all these surveys. In the difficult year of 2020, we only had 90 of 254 counties that were recognized for their work. There are sections in the survey that ask about our organization, how it is funded, our planning, the stewardship of county resources, which includes surveys of historical markers and endangered properties. The community awareness section asks how we participate and revitalize our communities. The most important section has 3 detailed project descriptions. I have to share which project for each question to satisfy their specific questions. One was which project educated audiences outside of your county. Each question asks detail of how we accomplished projects that we described and the outcome. For the record, in this report, I've listed notable KCHC projects in 2020. The first one is the Untold Story Marker for the Kerrville State Hospital's Gates of Heaven Cemetery. This cemetery was used for Negroes that died of tuberculosis when it was a tubercular hospital. It is funded by the Texas Historical Commission and is especially meaningful for the county. We are also waiting for the Glenrest Cemetery and Live Oak Ranch historical markers to be delivered from the foundry. Number 2, members inspected all 86 county historical markers and inventoried their condition. Hunter DeSanger restored 20 historical markers for his Eagle Scout project. 4, the display cases at the entrance of the county courthouse have been redesigned by the KCHC. The first display featured photos and histories of the courthouse. The current exhibit is Kerrville Loves the Parade. The next quarterly exhibit will feature the military in Kerr County. This project gives a visual historical presence and can educate and entertain the many visitors to the courthouse. And I invite all of y'all to go look at the displays right at the entrance. We also partnered with the Hill Country Archaeology Association in June. They hosted 300 plus attendees for the Texas Archaeological Society Field School. We provided historical brochures for their gift packets. The KCHC Cemetery Committee, under the guidance of the Texas Historical Commission, coordinator, has identified and documented several previous unknown cemeteries and filed in the county clerk's office. It is known that more than 15 have not been documented. Preserving cemeteries give important clues to our history. Our archives. In January 2029, the Commissioners Court and Schreiner University agreed to the long-term loan of KCHC archives and artifacts to the William N. Logan Library Special Collection. The location of the Commission collection at the library provides for their secure and environmentally correct storage and allows them to be available for the public's enjoyment, education, and research. We continually update this collection with oral histories, agendas, and other items. The KCHC is meeting with the newly established Kerrville Main Street organization, and they are helping to promote our downtown historical building sign project. The Kerrville Convention and Visitor Center is participating in designing a driving, walking map of Kerrville historic neighborhoods, buildings, and areas. These projects and others I haven't listed are designed to meet our purpose of saving and promoting our history. They also help to bring tourists into the county. Heritage tourism is an economic bonanza. Our commission, through its many projects, add to our quality of life here in the Best County in Texas. I hope this report gives the court assurances of our value to the citizens of Kerr County and the state of Texas. We appreciate the Texas Historical Commission's recognition of our commission for this prestigious award, and we could not exist without the support of you, the Kerr County Commissioners Court. Thank you.
Julie, a couple of questions. You have 57 members. Is that about the average that you have over
We
the
probably
past
have
year?
a few more now. So,
Okay,
but
okay.
attrition
All right, good.
and people moving out. So
You guys do outstanding work.
thank you.
And Jill, if you come down here in front, I'll present the award.
Wait, one more thing, if you would, while you're still at the podium. Excuse me, Judge. Go back to your item number 5. I think you may have hit it. Okay, do it again because it's going to set up the next agenda item. The Archaeological Society.
Yeah.
Won't you go, did you read that?
Yes, she did.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Steve is here.
Yes, that's the reason I said,
Yeah.
but you cooperated with the Archaeological
I
Society.
want
That's
my
fine.
treasurer. She's an important part of our group. Wilma T.
It's my honor to present to you the Texas Historical Commission presents this 2020 Distinguished Service Award to the Kerr County Historical Commission in recognition of its active and well-balanced preservation program. It's signed by the Executive Director, Mark Wolf, on the 10th day of June, 2021. And so I want to hold this around here and shake your hand. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Nope. You gotta be fast on the draw. Fast on the button, not on the draw.
Along that same line, let's go on to item 1.2, which is to discuss the results of the Texas Archaeological Society event in Kerr County in June of 2021.
Steve Stoudemire.
Steve Stoudemire.
Good morning, Judge Kelly and Commissioners. My name is Steve Stoudemire. I am an official of our local Archaeological Association here in Kerr County. That's the Hill Country Archaeological Association, as well as a member of the Texas Archaeology Society. And it's about the Texas Archaeology Society, which I'll refer to as TAS, that I'm about to give you a report of the field school that was held here June 12 through June 19 of this year. TAS annually gives a field school somewhere in the state at rich archaeological sites that have the right logistics for members to participate. Certainly we have the right, probably some of the best logistics here for such a thing, and we have a rich archaeological site. We were to have this last year, but the pandemic canceled it, and we rescheduled for this year. Overall, I would have to say it was a very good success. We actually had more participants than were expected in this sort of gray area on the back end of the pandemic. I'm going to have to dispute Julie's numbers. I've got a little bit more update on it. We had a total of 360 participants that week of June 12 through June 19. The members of TAS come from all over, primarily Texas, but all over the U.S. In fact, the one that traveled the furthest to get here for this event was from New York. So people were really interested in this kind of thing. This is the first field school in Kerr County since 1972. and TAS has been doing this for well over 60 years. There were actually the most attendees, first-time attendees to a field school ever at this field school. Maybe that had something to do with pent-up pandemic demand. The way the structure of the individuals and the groups worked was the main excavation was at a prehistoric site on the west side of Kerrville, outside of the city limits. Those were prehistoric excavations at a site that our local organization has worked since 2014, so we were very well aware of what they would run into, what to expect. There were 160 people at any given time, including 77 children and their families. There were a total of 25 actual professional archaeologists at this event from all over the state, including State Historical Commission, Texas Department of Transportation, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and private practice archaeologists. In addition to the main excavations, the main prehistoric excavations, there were historic excavations on the Julius Neinhofer Ranch, and there were a total of 42 people that participated in that. There were also individual survey teams that went all over the county to ranches which we had, at the local level, had lined up for the field school to do surveys of those ranchers' property, and if sites were identified, to map the properties, create reports for the individuals, and then if the individual, the property owner, agreed to it, actually record it with the state. And we did have some of those that agreed to do that. There were 20 people that participated in that event. And then there was a field laboratory at the ranch house on this main prehistoric site. 36 people participated in that. And if you've been doing the math, you don't come up to 360, and that's because some people were doing two different things at two different times of the week, so they were getting double counted. It's impossible at this time to say how many artifacts were found, but they were literally in the thousands. These are all back in Austin now and will be worked over this next year at the Archaeology Research Laboratory there. They consist primarily of flint tools and points, what most people would call arrowheads, but they're really spear points, but arrowheads also, flint knives, etc. This particular site had been occupied intermittently over the last 7,300 years, according to our radiocarbon dates we've received there, by peoples that came in, camped, hunted game, used the native plants, and then moved on. And of course they left a lot of things behind them, and which eventually became covered up with multiple floods of the Guadalupe River, putting silt over those deposits. The facilities for the school where people stayed was many and varied, but the most people stayed at River Star Park and Flat Rock Creek Park. And so my thanks to the commissioners, especially Commissioner Moser, for really working with us to put us in contact with the River Star Park people, but also to all the commissioners for letting the school use the Flat Rock Lake Park. So the operations went on during the day, beginning at 7 and until 1, and then everybody went to their respective sleeping areas. And then there was a program every night at the River Star Park, which included PowerPoints of archaeological sites here in Kerr County. One night there was a dance with a local band. There was a public night which the papers advertised very well, where non-members of the TAS could come and listen to the chief archaeologist for the whole field school talk about the week and the findings of the week. And then there was an artifact identification. So there were a lot of people that came out here, and Commissioner Moser, I think, could attest to that because he and his wife Jenny were there. But people were from all over the county and some outside of the county that brought their artifacts for qualified professionals and or avocationals to identify. So that went really well, and I think that's going to summarize it pretty well. I think I went over my 3 minutes, but anybody that knows me knows I can't talk less than 3 minutes.
Any thoughts for next year?
Yes, thank you. The owner has agreed to have it again next year. TAS definitely wants to have it, so it will be here again next year. And we identified a few hiccups in the whole process, which I think we will be able to work out and make it an even better one next year. Hopefully we'll have more participants. Hopefully we'll have a lot of this COVID stuff more behind us, And that's the only thing we think that kept people back this year.
Very good. Super, super, super.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Good
And-
job.
And for those of you that are watching what we're doing as we juggle this agenda this morning, whether you're on YouTube or here in person, we've got over 24 people here on the Centerpoint issue that are in the courtroom or waiting outside. And these we did the Historical Society first, and we did the Archaeological Society because they arranged with us long ago to set aside today to appear. So we're trying to accommodate their schedules. We have two other quick things that we need to address that are very important also before we get to the Centerpoint issue. And that is item 1.3, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a request from the Texas Hill Country chapter of the Texas Master Naturalist and Kerrville chapter of the Native Plant Society of Texas to approve their courthouse garden expansion proposal. And for those of you that don't know who these ladies are, they work outside this courthouse all the time. I see them here constantly, it seems like, to take care of the grounds and to promote native plants here at the courthouse. So,
Every Tuesday.
yeah. So,
Okay.
Ms.
Thank you
King?
very much. Thank you for your time. I'm Alice King. I'm a volunteer with the Texas Master Naturalist Hill Country chapter. I have with me Pam Leonhardt, Robin Hale, Teresa Coleman, who's here somewhere, also volunteers with Texas Master Naturalists and with the Kerrville chapter of the Texas Native Plant Society. Master Naturalists are sponsored by Texas Parks and Wildlife and A&M AgriLife Extension. Native Plant Society has been active here in Kerrville for 25 years, more than 25 years. Volunteers from these organizations have contributed thousands and thousands of hours to conservation and preservation efforts in Hill Country and Kerr County. We volunteer at state parks, natural areas, archaeological sites, wildlife management areas. Here in Kerrville, we support the Riverside Nature Center and the Kerrville Shriner City Park, among other things, and also here, the pollinator garden here at the courthouse. So the pollinator garden was established in 2016 with native plants that support our native pollinators. It's now mature. I think we can say it's a great success. When we're working, we get lots of compliments from people passing by. We're very pleased. So we have a proposal to expand native plants around the perimeter toward the front. But if you'll bear with us 1 second, we wanted to share with you our vision for what the courthouse grounds as a whole could look like. I think we all agree that the Texas Hill Country is one of the most, if not the most beautiful places on the planet, and it's one of the most unique places. People flock here from everywhere to see the natural beauty of this place. Somehow, though, the courthouse grounds are fairly well dominated by plants from other continents, plants and trees from other continents. So we'd like to see that transition overall to natives. It would be remarkably beautiful. It would celebrate this place. In that regard, we'd especially like to see this at Veterans Memorial. Also, native plants are easier to care for, and they support our birds, our pollinators, our beneficial insects. So our proposal today is a step in that direction. We'd like to work with the county to remove invasive non-native Nandina in the certain place we've outlined in our proposal. We plan to implement low-growing shrubs and flowering plants that will bloom in our state and national colors, red, white, and blue. So that's all the commentary I have. We want to answer your questions, or if you'd like us to walk through the proposal, we're happy to do that now.
Only comment, I think it's a great idea, but only comment I have is that there is a plan, probably several years down the road, to do a major facelift of the courthouse square. And a lot of, I hate for, a lot of effort, I want to make sure y'all are aware that a lot of it may have to get removed during some of that construction and redone again. And it may or may not happen, I'm not sure, it'll be subject to a bond issue. But that is, and it's probably, bond issue would be sometime in the next 24 months, probably in the next 12 months. But
November of 22.
November 22. So, Anyway, I just wanted y'all to be aware of that. I mean, I think it's a long-term, that's the direction that the plan goes, is to go with natives. But it's in the short term, we'd love to see it done, but I'm not sure how long it would last. It certainly would be there a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're willing to, I guess, take our chances a little bit. We think what we come up with will fit in with anybody's ultimate plan. It'll be beautiful, and, you know, we'll have to see how things unfold, but, you know, we're aware of those plans, so,
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
I'd be glad to meet with you one-on-one and kind of give you an idea as to the beds that would be the most impacted by the current plan that's on the table.
Okay.
Well, I know it, because I've talked to these ladies quite a bit about this, and mainly they're looking at this east side by the door
Yeah.
back here, and wrap around to the front door.
Right.
Just that, and it needs upgrading.
It definitely needs it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's-
I'm against taking the trees down.
No, we're not talking about the
Man
trees.
D.
This,
Man D.
it appears from what they've circled here that the trees would come down. Did I misunderstand that?
No,
Yeah, I circled, so we have you have a mature Yukon holly that we'd like to leave there.
yeah,
There's a tree over here that's non-native. We don't really know what it is. Where it can go either way on that. If we leave it,
It provides shade, it doesn't matter what it is.
okay. So if we want, you know, that's the decision.
it's about as tall as you and I. We'd have to lay down and get underneath it. I think the one.
Well, you're a little shorter than
Well,
I am, but Tom and I can get under that thing. Anything that provides shade is what I'm talking about. What I'm looking at here, I don't know if this is an error in the circling of it, but it looks like it goes all the way up to the top of the tree
Yeah,
in your color coding.
right. So that's,
Takes in 2 trees there. Those are trees that provide shade.
there's a pecan that we love. There's one that we question, but again, if, you know, if you want to leave it there, we don't have a problem. We agree.
these are the ones
A
right
mature
next to the
tree is a
building.
valuable.
All you have to
So-
do is go out to the HEB parking lot and see how important shade is. They're
Absolutely.
parked all the way at the end just to get to the shade.
Yes.
Just say that Native Plant Society is working, excuse me, I can't hear
Can't
you.
understand that.
You can take your
I'm
mask
sorry,
down if you
well,
want
I just want
to
to
talk.
You can take your mask
Aware
down
that-
to speak.
That Native Plant Society is well aware of that, and we're working with HEB starting at their Laity Lodge to start.
No, I don't care about HEB. That was just a.
No, I know I understand it's a widespread problem. And the other issue with this tree is not only is it not native, but I think it's a danger to the foundation, the structure of the building. It was planted too close to the building, and, you know, you're not concerned about that. We are, you know, that it's going to continue to be a problem. And, you know, better to address that problem sooner rather than later. And there are a lot of beautiful pecan trees, native pecan trees out here that do provide lots of shade. And we're all for trees, so.
Excuse me, what is your name?
Oh, Pamela Leanhard.
Pam, y'all done a great job. Thank you for everything.
And I want to clarify so that everybody that's watching and here in the courtroom, this many people hearing this, so that you understand. We have a capital improvement planning committee that is working on, and we have a designated representative of that committee that is working on the courthouse grounds. And so we're going to want y'all to coordinate with them. And they relied on there was actually a courthouse grounds committee that made some recommendations to them. So what we want to do at this point is we appreciate everything you're doing, we accept your program, but we need to make sure that the right hands and the left hands and the right feet and the left feet are all working together in the same direction.
We have tried to have some input, and it's just input in this committee, and so far haven't been able to make any inroads, but we appreciate
Well,
the
that's what I'm
fact
for.
that you're inviting us to do that, and thank you.
If I can't open the door, no one will.
Commissioner Letts, for
You'll be in the
inviting
loop.
us to meet with you. Because we're aware of that plan, we're aware of that plan down the road. We think what our plan would probably not affect the greater plans for re-landscaping of the
And to put some time frame on it, what we're looking at here is you're talking about doing an immediate program, which is particularly welcome, specifically welcome. In terms of the planning that's going on with the capital improvements around the courthouse and what we're going to have to do here for security purposes and these other things, all that's going to need to be coordinated, and that probably won't take place. If the bond issue is in November of '22, we're not going to get around to doing much of anything probably until '23. So we've got plenty of time.
The tree you're talking about is a viburnum.
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 Nandina is, I think.
It's a yeah, but Nandina, the viburnum, sorry, Commissioner, but I agree with them that from the location of the tree is not really
Well,
good.
that's a different matter.
Right.
You're talking about beautification versus structural
Right.
damage.
Right.
And if it gets into structural damage, there's no question.
Right.
Or if a tree is dead and it's a possible threat of falling onto the building,
Right.
then I'm all for that. But just because we don't like the looks of it, there's probably some people in this room that aren't native Texans either, so I don't hold anything against them if you're not a native to Texas. So provide a service as does the shade tree.
We think they're beautiful. What
Yeah.
we're saying is that non-native plants are not necessarily beautiful. We welcome all the people who have come here and adding their beauty. Thank you
Again,
very
I'm just
much.
making a point.
Yeah.
What about on TV is not about the Yankees here.
I want to
It's
make
about making a point.
one more statement, if I would. We could talk a whole lot about native plants, but we were here we work every Tuesday out here unless it's raining. We were out here last Tuesday and happened to meet two of the maintenance staff who were pulling out some large shrubs on the other side of the courthouse that froze during, remember the winter event we had. Do you know how many plants we lost in our garden? Which are
None.
I didn't
all
see
native.
None,
Zero.
zero.
Yeah, I didn't see
So
that.
we had
Yeah.
nothing to pull out, nothing to replant and all, so there's a lot to be said. for that.
And your little signs on there show what plants are what are
We'll try
very
to
helpful.
educate,
Thank you.
that's part of our mission. is
Thank
the-
you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. I've got one more that was scheduled in advance. Let's take this pretty quickly. It's 1.4, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the purchase of signs that detect wildlife for use throughout the county. Do we have anybody here to speak on that?
So you lighting
They
just
just-
you check outside?
Lang Henning?
Yeah. One of my former students.
I was wondering how we say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved here from West Texas, and I can handle Hispanic names really well, but it's just German I'm learning.
Looking for me, I haven't seen him.
Okay. All right.
Okay, then we'll just pass over that. Oh, here we go? No, this is Chris Tom.
No, it's Chris. Okay.
Okay, so for the folks at home, I want to let you know what we're doing here. We've got over a couple of dozen, 2 dozen plus, people here that want to listen to the status report on Centerpoint Village. Before we do that, we have an addendum to our agenda, which is item 1.29, which is about the subdivision rules that Commissioner Moser asked that we take first because it may help explain some of the questions that the public has. And so at this time, I'm going to call item 1.29, which is information regarding Kerr County subdivision rules and regulations and options associated therewith. It's got Commissioner Moser and Commissioner Letts.
Thank you, Judge. I thought it would be good just to let everybody be on the same page of what the county can and cannot do regarding subdivisions. Our subdivision regulations are on our website, so they're available for anybody. A lot of people don't go to the website and read all the details because they're very, very long and entailed. So I'm going to try and summarize real quickly, just hopefully as issues come up, it'll kind of put in perspective of what the Commissioners Court can and can't do, can and cannot do. The county is authorized by the state to regulate subdivisions, number one. The standards are in this, plats are required for a proposed subdivision. They must include storm drainage, floodplain adherence, and roads. Quarter-acre lots are allowed. Smaller lots may be considered by the court. Water must meet state requirements in a subdivision and be demonstrated to have that water availability. Wastewater must meet state requirements, and septic system must meet state requirements. So these are things we don't have flexibility. For some of you here, the Commissioners Court can only do what's authorized by the state legislature, period. We can't pass ordinances, we can't do anything like the cities can. So we're limited in a lot of things that we can and cannot, we're limited in a lot of things we can and cannot do. As far as platting is concerned, concept plans are optional, and that means if somebody wants to form a subdivision, before they spend a lot of money on engineering, they can come in with a hand-drawn concept of what they want to do what they plan to do, how they plan to do it. They meet with Charlie Hastings, our subdivision guru, okay, administrator, and says, yeah, that looks like you can do it. Now go and do your detail engineering. Then come back with a final plat, which has all the detail engineering related to the water, everything I mentioned before, water, septic, floodplain, et cetera, and storm drainage. Once that is presented to the court, we have 10 days to review it, okay? And then we can approve it with conditions, or disapprove it. And anything that we do has to be cited, and I'll get the county attorney to correct me here if I'm wrong anyplace, is we have to cite the reason per state law that we're disapproving. Now, if we take no action whatsoever for 30 days, it becomes approved. So that's a very quick summary. I thought it would just help lay the groundwork of what we, the court, can and cannot do. Lots of things we can't do, we'd like to do, okay? But we can't. So with that, Judge, thank you.
Commissioner, I'll make one comment on that. And this is a confusing part of our rules. There's a section called the model subdivision rules, and it applies to any lot that is less than 5 acres. Those rules conflict with some of our other rules, but they take precedent. So when we say the way we did the water availability table, that does not apply here because of the model subdivision rules. Model subdivision rules clearly state in the first sentence that if there's any conflict, these are the rules we must follow by law. So, and it is confusing because it looks contradictory, and if you miss that one sentence, then you really get confused. But there are the model subdivision rules are really what apply for a lot of the issues in Center Point Village.
Okay.
I would say this too, that Mr. Mosier said that we're restricted to what the state says we can do. We're required to do what the state says, so it's both things.
Yeah.
They go together. We're required to do what the state says to do. So we can't go beyond what's written. And we're required by law to enforce what's written.
Thank you, Judge.
Now, before I ask for people that want to speak to go to the podium, let's go ahead and call 1.15 so that we have both topics before this audience. And that is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the status of the Center Point Village project. Now, Alicia Bell requested this. Is she here? Does she want to address this first?
I'm here.
If you would, state your name
Alicia Bell,
and where do you live?
6473 Highway 27 in Center
Okay.
Point.
And we try to limit these, since we have so many people, we limit it to 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer, but you can go ahead and start.
One thing I might say is speak up loudly, because the speaker's up here for you to.
Just speak right into that microphone, that camera.
I'm relatively new to the area. I just moved here in October. Currently looking for a place to live, but wondering if this village, as being as large as it's planned, is a wise decision to totally change the population of Center Point. I tried to find the population of what Center Point is, and I really couldn't find one. Not sure why. We've already had a census, so I don't know why there's no population, but wouldn't that be increasing the population by 3 times the amount? Is that wise? Is there enough water to deal with that? How are the schools going? How's the school going to deal with an influx of children?
Let me
And it would
comment
totally
that-
change the.
And I've had a lot of calls against Center Point Village and for Center Point Village. And as I stated earlier, Commissioner Les can comment on this, the proposed developer, has to prove water availability by drilling a well and going through the procedures to meet state requirements to show that there is water available for X number of years for a population like that for that area, okay? So that's it, okay? And that's something's done. I think we've had
Not on that one. Not on Center Point Village.
It's actually Aqua Texas. The developer
Okay.
provides the information to Aqua Texas, and Aqua Texas, who will be the water provider, is the one
Okay,
that
yeah.
works
Or
with TC.
whichever water provider.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Aqua Texas is the one that they're
Well,
working
water
with.
has to be shown to be approved, whether it's
And
Center Point Village is Aqua Texas, Verde Creek Ranch is not Aqua Texas, but that's a different issue. I don't want to get off into that. And we've had several meetings where we've discussed concept and preliminary plans and things like that. We've had headwater to groundwater there. We've had UGRA there. We've headwater to groundwater looking at water availability as they best understood it then, understanding what they're going to do. We've had the sewer system, central sewer system people there from WCID #1 and Comfort. We've had superintendent of schools from Center Point there, not to make decisions, but just to contribute to the conversation. So I think we've had about 4 meetings like that, and I've had 2 town hall meetings on this subject. So, we're trying to keep everybody informed. Nothing has been approved. Only a concept has been approved. So it's back to what I said, the developer has to come back to the court and present all this information, and then the court, as I said, acts within 10 days and says why, one way or another.
Now, Ms. Bell, your time, we pause the time when we're talking, so you still have some time. But what I wanted to clarify about this Aqua Texas is they provide a letter to us guaranteeing that they can supply water to that subdivision for 30 years. And if they do that, then they've met their water requirement. It's not all that difficult. And the Aqua Texas is the one doing Center Point Village.
And from whatever source, wherever they can get it.
Right.
They're on the
they're-
line for 30 years.
That's right. And they're obligated.
To answer one of your other questions about this population, Center Point's not incorporated. It used to be incorporated, and if it was still incorporated, it'd be a whole different thing possibly in dealing with this one, but that's a different topic. But because it's not incorporated, the population of Center Point is included in the county population. It's not because of the lack of incorporation.
It's not segregated.
Yeah.
So that's the reason it's.
I also wanted to comment on people move to rural areas because they want to be in rural areas and not live around a ton of people. I'm a country girl, grew up in the country. I don't like to live around a whole lot of people. I picked the small town. I picked this, around Kerrville. It's a small city. And Center Point is small. I think this will change the city dramatically. It'll change traffic. It will no longer be like a rural community.
Allow me to address that for you. I've been up in the hill country now for well over 30 years. And one of the things I learned about my lifestyle, if I don't own that property next door, I have no say in what they're going to do in the county. We do not have regulatory authority. We do not have zoning authority. There's nothing the county can do. If you own your land, you're entitled to use your land as long as it's a legal use. So that's just something to remember.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask, I'm sure there may be questions or there may be comments that you want to make, but the podium is now open for anybody that would like to address this court or ask questions of us. I want to ask you to identify yourself, where you live, right after this lady here. And we're going to limit your time to 3 minutes.
Okay. I wish I had a stopwatch I could watch. I'm Susie Beddick. I own a home at 7750 Target Hill Road, pretty close to Wilson Creek. I'm an old Kerrville girl, Tybee grad, so I've been around a while. I think you all need to understand the background of this project. And I'm also a person who, along with Ron Boucher, did a PIA request. There was a lot of talk about how much time and energy went into starting and talking with this developer. The first email, the first contact we see is December the 4th between Mike Wellborn, asking for a meeting on December the 7th. That didn't happen. On December the 8th, Mike Wellborn again asked for a meeting on December the 15th. That meeting happened. After that meeting, and this goes to Mr. Moser's comment in the newspaper about I'm neither for nor against the project. Mr. Moser's email on December the 16th says, I will do whatever I can to help reach the goal. December the 16th. Between December 22nd and January 4th, Mr. Moser was not in town. The next meeting we see is a January 6th request to meet on the 8th. 2 meetings at this point, 2. January 15th, Commissioners Court met. On January 21st, Mr. Moser's asking the developer, where is your subdivision in Braunfels? Interestingly, I didn't get any email that tells you where that is. On January 25th, you all met again. Mr. Lads was copied and supposedly participated in all of this, but I don't have any PIA responses from Mr. Lads. I have one notice that he might be able to make a meeting. I have another one that said he'll try and make the meeting on the 15th, and that on January 6th he can't make the meeting. Other than that, Mr. Lads doesn't produce any paper in response to my PIA request. And at that point, all I have is where he's copied on everything. So you were in the loop, but it doesn't look like you really participated in that loop. I wonder why, and this is the one that really bothered me. In trying to promote this project, Mr. Moser is suggesting to the developer that he use the county PR department to help get out the work. That's not the job of the county PR department. That's not how our tax dollars ought to be used in this county. It's not up to Commissioners Court to pitch a project. It's up to the developer. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me say something about the public relations part of it. It's not to promote something, it's to get the information out so everybody in this room knows. That's what that's for. It's not to promote anything.
Would you like me to read the email?
No, I'd like you to read the press release. If you have the press release, then you would see what the point is.
Would you like me to read what Mr. Moser was proposing to the developer?
No, you're misunderstanding my point. I want everybody to understand what the public relations department does here is just gets information out to people about where there's going to be a town hall, what's going on. We're not promoting.
Would you like
something.
me to read the email from Mr. Moser?
That's the email from Mr. Moser is different than what the public relations department does. I'm trying to distinguish the difference so everybody knows we're not promoting anything through the public relations of the
I'm
county.
trying to convey what Mr. Moser was telling the developer he would do.
I understand that, but that's a different matter than the public relations and what actually went out here. It's informational. I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea about what the public relations department does.
The other thing,
If you can produce a public relations press release that says we promote this, then that would be sort of the point you're making. I don't want to mislead the public about this.
a comment, just so everyone knows. I think I attended 2 meetings. I can't remember exactly on this. I get lots of emails. I reply to very few. I get copies. This is Mr. Moser's precinct. I attended the meetings primarily because I'm very familiar with subdivision rules, and I gave my input at the meetings. I went through all of my personal emails, of which you were provided some of them, or any of them that were related to this, and all of my county emails. The county IT department went through and provided you copies of all those. So, and I think went through all my texts as well. So, I deal a lot on the telephone when I'm talking generally with the subdivision administrator, like I'm setting up meetings. It's a whole lot more efficient for me to call and say, here's some times I can make it or not make it. But you've got copies of all the emails, both personal and off the county, my county computer, related to this topic.
excuse me,
Morning.
anybody that wants to speak, you need to raise your hand so I can acknowledge you, so we'll do it in an
Sorry.
orderly way. That's fine. Please identify yourself.
All right. I guess since I'm not a native, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. But I got here as soon as I could, right?
We're going to teach you how to say y'all.
Yeah. Well, I was brought up in New Orleans. Don't mistake me being from the Bronx, because I get accused of that a lot.
Yeah.
And we probably don't say New Orleans correctly either.
You don't. It's not New Orleans, it's New Orleans.
State your name.
My name is Ron Booker, and we have a home on Dove Valley Drive, my wife and I, Janet. And we've been in the area for 10 years. There are many things about how this project developed, and we could get into the notification of the people in Center Point about what is going on. I think the main issue has always been the water issue. And, you know, I know you all are going to be speaking about the model subdivision rules here shortly, but I think the model subdivision rules are pretty explicit. And I think that's why people are upset about what's being done here. And I think if you were to do anything to those model subdivision rules, is just stick by the rules and add one more rule. And that is, there should be no high-density subdivisions in priority groundwater management areas. I mean, it's a finite resource. And you're going to put all these people in that one area. And it's going to run out one day. And, you know, how many people is this county going to be able to support through its resources? That's a long-term issue. There are a lot of other places where there's high-density subdivisions. That's right here. And everything is here. The infrastructure's here. Police, fire, medical, everything is here. Now, getting to the PIA that Susie and I were involved in, there have been comments that these discussions were going on for 4 months prior to it being introduced in January. But like Susie said, there wasn't anything until December 6th regarding the discussion of the project. In addition, there was absolutely nothing in there discussing who Eden Farms and Brandon Namkin was. So I don't know if any due diligence was done at all looking into that Eden Farms Limited or Mr. Namkin. There's a lot of time, which means a lot of money that went into discussions with this person, and, you know, money that paying our engineer and other people to be involved in this. I would have thought, and I don't know, maybe maybe what I'm about to tell you is known. I don't know. It's certainly not indicated in any of the documents that we recovered from the PIA. But you know, Mr. Namkin came to you all and said that he was involved in these projects, that they had partnered up with Eden Farms, and he named some locations. And personally, when you go online and look at those locations, there's nothing that he's done that is similar to what's going to be done here. Now, in Buda, he was involved in platting a subdivision, but it appears that subdivision has been developed by Perry Homes. And the subdivision that you went to, I believe, in Green, Mr. Moser, that's an interesting subdivision, and it's interesting that he sent it to you.
Mr. Booker, your time is up.
Okay.
I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity to
I'll
speak.
give him my 3 minutes.
He can have
I
you.
signed up, yeah.
Okay.
All right. You will be receiving this information from Mr. Mosty. But Brandon, in 2015, was involved in that development out there. There have been 3 significant lawsuits against Mr. Namkin. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this. And you know, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and a lot of people in business end up doing something like that. And I get that. But these are 3 suits that this went to the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Western District of Texas, San Antonio Division, the Honorable Craig A. Gorgata. And they ruled in all 3 cases to a total of about $1.1 million, including the attorney fees. And he ruled that I can't remember the term, but he ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, and these plaintiffs, in their pleas to the court, these are the things that were discussed and brought up to the judge's attention. We're talking fraud, embezzlement, forgery, misapplication of fiduciary funds, and out theft. There's a list of creditors in that area in New Braunfels that's probably 10 pages long. But these 3 people, to the tune of about $1.1 million, non-dischargeable, that's the term I was looking for, in the bankruptcy, non-dischargeable. That means the judge believed what these people were saying. Now, I don't know where that suit, whether or not he's paid off those judgments or not. If he has, I sure would like to know about that. I don't know. Within a month of the last judgment, he opened up a new company called C-Ray. And that's what I believe he's been functioning under here. So I don't know if you all knew that. I'm not here to embarrass anybody, but I think it's important that there should be scrutiny on who we do business with in this county. And I just hope that you all take appropriate action if you're not aware of what this man has been involved in. You will get the full reports from Mr. Mosley. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Yes, sir. You've been trying for a long time.
I'm Joe Rexack. I live on Willow Bend Drive, and I'm a transplant. Originally El Paso, Washington, California, and then back to wonderful Texas. I appreciate how you started this meeting, aside, obviously the prayer and the pledge, but small town, this is what we moved here for. We talked about the history, and you applaud and you give out awards, and you talk about plants and bringing back the natural vegetation. And then I'm just going to tell you, I would not have transplanted my family into Center Point if I would have known this was being seriously considered. Let's talk about putting some California plants out here. It would be equal to what we're dealing with, and you could then argue back with us why the native plants are so important. We shouldn't have to be here. We talk about, ma'am, who read we were talking about the PR department, right? Mr. Mosier, you are our PR department. That email does not represent us. I'm angry.
Were you at the town hall meeting?
Which one, sir?
Either one of the 2 town hall meetings?
I went to one, yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good.
Anyways, you interrupted my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
Hopefully that doesn't somehow tarnish what I'm saying. I'm just a regular guy that appreciates what this town is about. And what we've lost, what has happened here, is I'm arguing for something that you should be representing, for crying out loud. That's what makes this so difficult for me. You should be telling me that's not appropriate. If I were the developer, or I've got 10 acres, I'd like to put in condos. It looks like I've come to the right place. That's what they did to me in California. That's what they did in Washington State. No respect for the beauty of the community. None. And yet you see it here without a doubt. We opened the meeting very clearly that history is important. Center Point has tremendous value to me. We researched where we were going to live, and Center Point and the troopers, and they went there for their vacations. It's still there. Not with this. This is a blemish that if you can't see it, we need an eye chart. I mean, something basic. We can argue, codes and all of that stuff. But we didn't have to talk about codes and plants or history. Where's the codes for the history of what's so important here? We all know it. That's why we're here. We're not being represented with this, period. We're not. It's very clear. I don't have to cite a code. I couldn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
My name is Christy Richards. I also live on Willow Bend, and I would like to read an email that my friend Susie referenced. Brandon and Mike, my takeaway from yesterday's meeting was there appears to be a path forward for reaching a much-needed goal. I will do whatever I can to help reach the goal. The WCID #1 board meeting on January 14th will be a public meeting. Before that meeting, I think it would be good to make the public aware of the proposed Eden project. I could have the county PR person prepare a press release delineating the need, objective plans, benefits, near-term challenges, etc. This would be a way to structure the message as opposed to having the press be in control. I believe this could get a lot of public support for the project and would be a good thing to have before addressing the WCID board and commissioners courts. Your thoughts, Tom. That was December 16th, 2020. Sir, I did attend your town meeting. I attended one because I didn't know the other one happened. We weren't informed, even though we're on your email list. You told me at that meeting, I said, is this going to be a vote? That obviously there's some people who would disagree with you on this. And you told me that you were voted in, and that was my voice. I did not vote for you, sir. I do not think you represent, I also would show, you do not represent Center Point. Center Point is a rich heritage community. Bringing this in, I know the superintendent disagrees with me. He thinks there's room in the schools. I was a teacher. There is not room in the schools. There's just, I believe you said 100 spots available in your school district. This is going to be way more than 100 children. They're going to come into the Center Point school districts. And as a teacher, I would be shocked that you would throw me under the bus, that, oh, there's room for us. There's not. This is not a good idea. There is a way to do it correctly. I have video. I would love to share video that I took of the water rushing off beside the baseball fields. Water, if you add 100 houses, 300 houses, I believe, is that the number that you're thinking of adding? That water runoff is going to be amazing. Yes, I know this was not a normal water year, but it is going to be crazy what you were going to do to that community by putting that many homes in that condensed area. My water, I thank God we have not lost our water, but Pat, who lived in my home before I did, she did have to dig a deeper well, because the water is going to go away. My dad, who lives on Swayze Street, who was affected by Aqua, he didn't have water for days, and it wasn't because of the freeze. He was coming to my house to take showers because he couldn't get Aqua out there to fix the water system. Days. He was coming to my house to fill water to take to his home to put in a Berkey to filter because he didn't have water in Center Point, in town. So Aqua is not out for our best interest. In the amount of people that are living there now, you throw in 300 homes, I can't imagine. And not to mention the price of these homes. Nobody can afford to live in these homes that is workforce housing. So I'm against it. I would love to know, where do y'all stand on this? I would love to know where, Mr. Letts, I've heard you say, nobody's asked me what my opinion of it is. I'd love to know what each of your opinion is. Would you live in this subdivision?
I've given my opinion several times. I think condominiums is not the right way to go, but that's what the developer chooses to do. From a standpoint of, some folks mentioned his financial background, I'm aware of that. Our rules require that he has to put up a financial guarantee for any of the infrastructure he does. I think there's too many homes. I don't like the idea that it's RV, but those aren't my decisions. I have to follow the rules of state law, and that's what I have to vote on. But personally, and I've told those of you that have called me and I met with, I don't like subdivision. I wouldn't want it near me, but it's not my choice on that. My choice is to follow state law and enforce the rules that the county's adopted. And that's,
Can I ask a quick question? Doesn't the state law dictate that they cannot put more than 75 homes on that property?
Yes.
That's what the model subdivision rules say. It's very clear. Am I mistaken something?
This is a condo regime.
What does that mean?
No?
That still applies. So this shouldn't even, never mind.
Yes, sir? Please. And while he's going to the podium, let me thank you all for being so orderly. I know this is a difficult topic for everyone. We'll give everybody an opportunity to be heard.
My name is Ken Bennett. I live at 300 Willow Bend Road. My property adjoins this Center Point Village, about 1,500 feet. The proposed well, as best as I can estimate, is 1,303 feet from my well. Gene Williams says that this subdivision can be licensed to have 80,000 gallons of water times the 149.5, which is real close to the 12 million gallons a year. The developer said on January 21st, of which I was at, that the main houses can only have 145 gallons a day use. The RVs can have far less than that. At 80% of the 12 million gallons is 116 gallons a day. You don't have to be too much of a rocket scientist to understand that 116 gallons a day on an average family of 2 adults and 2.4 children, that you cannot have that much usage. You have to have much more. The water district in Comfort, of which we stayed 30 years, so that they have 300 gallons a day that they use. I cannot see possibly how this subdivision can possibly exist. No one talked about the affordable housing, but I've done figures, and with the 300,000 that was supposed to be proposed in January for 1,300 square foot, will cost $2,467 a month of payments, with the principal and interest and everything escrow. If a person could put down $64,000, that would be the case. If not, you add mortgage insurance of another $167 a month to make it $2,600. A couple would have to have $130,000 plus a month or a year interest or income to support that. I don't think very many people in Kerr County can support that. Is that my time up?
It's not up, but
Okay. I heard some.
she'll tell you. You got 30
Oh, okay.
seconds.
I'll try to.
So, to reiterate of what I'm talking about, I have played and hunted and fished on that property since 1979. I've been given permission by Namkin to go ahead and take some firewood off, which I've done. I've been on the property and taken pictures and shared with our county engineer the flood that was, July 5th, that we had several inches of rain. The dam that was taken out, well, I guess I'm out. But
Anybody
the
want to say
problem
time to
was
me?
the soil
Just a second.
conservation dam. Okay.
Okay.
The soil conservation dam that was built around 1950 was taken out after the 2002 flood that breached 12 to 15 foot, 18 foot high water and washed out across the subdivision down below next to the baseball field. There was 6 to 8 foot of water coming across that almost immediately. Washed out, was into the mini mart, up to 7 feet, or 4 feet, I think, in the mini mart. They have a line there. So,
For those of you that can't see, we have a photographer from the newspaper.
Yeah.
I have vested interest because of many, many things. Frank Thomason sold the property to KMAC in somewhere around February of 19. We saw his son shooting AR-15s up and down the right-of-way, and my son and I confronted him. He said, "Oh yeah, my dad and I bought this property." Well, how much did you pay? $548,000 or something in that neighborhood. KMAC keeps it for 14 months and sells it to Eden Farms for $1.something million, puts a fence up and puts a substandard entrance to the property. That's a pretty sweet deal in anybody's deal. Double your money in less than 14 months. Something smells terribly of this subdivision being put in a high density. It does not belong on our end of the county, especially the water. That's the most important thing. The septic, that's something different. We're only using 200,000 gallons a day here. They have capacity for 700,000 gallons, according to General Manager in Comfort. Gene Williams and Headwaters needs to reevaluate the 80,000 gallons, especially when we are in such a dropping in the Middle Trinity aquifer. We have to conserve water. This supposable subdivision will turn eventually to HUD Section 8 housing because no one can afford it. Please understand that, Commissioners, when you vote for the final approval. And yes, we will fight this tooth and nail all the way to wherever it needs to be. We have some very deep pockets of which we will utilize to fight this. Please, please consider before you vote. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Yes, ma'am?
Is she here?
Another three, she's giving me another three.
I think, she just yielded a while ago. Didn't you just yield a while ago?
No, it was a different one.
Oh, different, I'm sorry.
Just quickly,
Related
with
to
regard to the workforce housing, I mean, we still don't have an idea of what does that mean? What is the income? I know that Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing, they were here, the executive vice president talked about the jobs, and I've heard it say they're going to bring hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And she mentioned that their salaries were going to be between, I think, $17,000 and $22,000 a year. And that is the big question why a lot of these people are here. We're seeing one thing and we hear something else. And there's just no way that's going to happen. I mean, those people will not be able to afford it unless they put 2 or 3 families in the houses at one time. So it's been a combination of things that have occurred with this whole project. One, how it quickly went down before anybody really knew about it. And I know we had town hall meetings, but quite frankly, those wouldn't have happened if Judge Kelly wouldn't have put his foot down and said, hey, we need to talk to the public. that first vote. There wasn't.
That's incorrect. I initiated the town hall meeting
No, sir,
myself.
I disagree with you completely. No, sir.
you
We can
disagree
look at
when
the
I-
video and we can read the minutes. That did not happen. That did not happen. In fact, you raised your voice sort of like that, like you just did to Judge Kelly when you got into that discussion. And Mr. Letts, you said, yeah, let's slow this thing down, but you wanted to vote that day. And nobody knew. For 4 months, you all said you worked on it. And then you came and you wanted to vote that day. And fortunately, we were able to get some information out there. And I will say, I'm on your email list too, and I appreciate your notifications. But on that first town hall, I think you've said you've had about 300 people on that list. I got my notification 5 hours before that meeting. And there just didn't seem a real effort. And contrary to all the tenets of the Kerr City of Kerrville Economic Development Plan 2050, which has been mentioned several times during the process of presenting this subdivision, this thing went down against all tenets of that thing. There was, all these meetings, you and Mr. Letts, you all were on the steering committees, and there was all this, talk about getting the community involved, especially with neighborhood placement and development. I don't think they meant having them involved after the plan was already made. I think they want involvement before and during the planning, having workshops where people can give input so that you all make the best decisions. And that wasn't done. And there was also the protection of the communities in our history here in Texas and in this area. So thank you very much. I appreciate y'all tolerating this time here. So,
just one comment, just about Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing. Their jobs are not 17,000 to
No.
22,000. They're much above that. I just want to clarify.
well, I'm going to think then what was ever in the paper, that was exactly
I think it was $17 to $22 per hour.
Dollars.
That's
No, sir, it was 17,000.
Well, that was a misquote in the paper.
Yeah, the paper's wrong. Their
Somebody
jobs
should
are.
have seen it.
We don't vouch for the paper.
That's $8 an hour.
It's
That's 17. That's $8 an hour.
it's 10:15.
$17 an hour is 34,000 a year
Right,
anyway.
right.
So that's not even enough to have.
Okay,
I'm just correcting the
Just a
individual.
minute. It's 10:15. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Good. Okay.
We have a quorum. I saw some hands before the break that wanted to speak. Ms. Potter?
I wish Commissioner Mosier was here.
He'll be back.
Okay. Can I wait?
Identify yourself and where you live, and then we can
Carrie
start.
Potter, 428 China Street in Center Point.
You may proceed.
So I actually signed up on 1.15 and 1.29. I don't know if that buys me a little more time.
They're both called.
Okay, both called. All right. So on 1.15, I've been here before. You've heard my dog and pony show, so I won't go into all of that. You know, I'm obviously against this development, or developments of its kind, I should say. One thing is, on 1.15, why is Centerpoint or East Kerr having to bear the burden of the Kerrville 2050 plan? I mean, why is that falling on the backs of the Centerpoint community? And with that being said, it's going to put a strain on our school. Cody, I'm sorry, but I think there will be more than 100 kids come out of that subdivision if it reaches fruition. Traffic is going to be a bear coming out there on 27, one way in, one way out. Our fire and EMS services are already strained. We're already, you know, our ambulances come from Kerrville. We're not getting any more of those. And our ESD through the fire department is probably happening because of things like this. So this is not a not in my backyard movement on our part. We know that growth is inevitable and it's going to happen. But let's make it responsible and good growth for our community, not just selling out to the lowest bidder. And then getting on to 1.29, I guess my request is, commissioners, call a workshop. Have a workshop about our Kerr subdivision rules. And let's get those firmed up before we start rubber stamping subdivisions right and left. Because there are a lot of things that could be worked out. I know Mr. Mosier just said that he met with the WCID and Headwaters and all the other entities, but open it up in this courtroom for us to come in here and hear it ourselves. And because if you start rubber stamping these, then what's going to keep another one from happening and another one from happening? And in my opinion, it's going to really become a headache for East Kerr, which is basically a jewel of our county. I mean, we sit on the Guadalupe, we have the Guadalupe River Valley, we have a brand new sewer system, and I know growth is going to happen, but it can be responsible growth. And getting back on the workshops, you guys have had workshops for a lot less important things. You've had budget workshops, you've had HR workshops, and you've had aggregate workshops on our aggregate.
Anybody want to see her more time?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, actually, there will be no oversight of Centerpoint Village to hold them accountable for doing the things that they're promising. And it's easy to make promises, and then once ground is broken, and Commissioner Mosier, I know at the last town hall, even though the water availability study has not come back yet, you told us in the town hall that they would be breaking ground in a couple of weeks. So do they break ground and then the water availability study comes back? Or so it just seems like this has been force-fed to the citizens of Centerpoint. And even though it's stated in the paper that 60% of us are against it and 40% are for it, it seems like that 60% isn't being heard. And I respect all of you. I'm thankful that you hear us all today, but just please keep in mind that this is going to dictate every other development going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buck.
A couple of comments. Just Several of y'all have brought up the 2050 plan. The 2050 plan was 100% the city of Kerrville's plan. And they asked myself, and I guess Commissioner Moser, to be on that committee. I think I may have been, I don't know, they've done it several times. I've been a chair a couple of times in some of the committees. And I think, and I appreciate the city reaching out to us and trying to get input, but it needs to be clear, that was a city of Kerrville plan, not a Kerr County plan, and we never endorsed that plan.
And
it was
I
a lot of good
realize-
work went into it, and I'm not anything bad about it, but it's not a county plan. And you had another comment I was going to mention. In my old age, away it went.
Well, I realize that
Oversight.
as commissioners,
Public
you
workshop.
were all appointed to different boards, and so,
Right.
but the other thing, I guess, Commissioner, let's just backing up a minute, is when you were talking about, that it was brought forward in the PIA that, you didn't have a whole lot of input on it. But you and Commissioner Moser sit on the Economic Development Committee for the county. You two are at the forefront of all of it.
Yep.
And so I know these things cross your desk. And so we just need we need you to stand up and be firm against it. If you don't like it, vote against it.
This never went to KEDC, and subdivisions generally don't ever go to KEDC. So the fact that board had nothing to do with this subdivision. The other one I was going to mention, the judge mentioned, on workshops, we have had over the past 2 years 3 or 4 subdivision workshops. So we do have them. We haven't had one recently, largely because our subdivision administrator has been really busy on some other projects, maybe the sewer project primarily. But we do have them, and we do look at them, and we are working on our subdivision rules to try to make them a little bit clearer in some areas.
Well, I will back up a little bit on that too. So I know I talked to Commissioner Moser at our second town hall about the subdivision rules, and I know you guys were working on some revisions, but our subdivision rules are dated back to 2007, and we have not had any work on revisions since August of 2019. You can't even take and blame COVID for that now. It's time to get these solidified and put to bed. Bandera County, which I love my Bandera County people, but that's a lesser county than Kerr County. Their subdivision rules have been updated 3 times, 15, 17, 19. They are actually making changes to make it more difficult for subdivisions to come about. Kerr County needs to follow suit and do that. Why do we need to supply workforce for our area? Let them come from Gillespie. Let them come from Kendall. Let them come from Kimball, Bandera. We only get so much of this God-given land we've got, so let's take care of it.
Can I make one quick comment regarding the 2050 plan?
Okay.
That plan was mentioned repeatedly by both Mr. Moser and Mr. Namkin in presenting the proposal. That it was consistent.
Okay.
That's why it's mentioned.
To clarify for the record, the 2050 plan is not a county plan. We're aware of it. We've even participated in different phases of it, but that's the city's plan. The problem that you're having is your proximity to the city of Kerrville. And they're coming east with their extraterritorial jurisdictions.
The movement is west. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying
City's going
Kerrville's
east.
moving east.
Right.
Towards you.
Bernie's moving west.
Now, another thing that I haven't made very many comments, but that I do want to make sure that y'all understand. Once the final plat is submitted to the county, we have a finite number of days to either approve or disapprove. If we fail, and how many days is that now? 30. Yeah, I thought. Yeah. 30 days. And if we do not act with a definite approval or a definite disapproval with detailed explanations why we disapprove, then the legislature changed the law a couple of years ago, it's automatically approved. So we're running against the clock. We don't have any plans submitted at this point other than the concept plan. And we talked a lot about water availability and wastewater. And just things that you need to understand is that when Aquatech gives the letter to the county guaranteeing that they're going to provide that water for 30 years, that meets the water availability criteria for development. And Tom's nodding his head, he knows. I saw, where's Chris? He's back there, he understands. You get that letter, that counts. On wastewater, now that we have our wastewater line, which is a great thing, but it goes right through your neighborhoods, they can meet the wastewater requirement. So if you're looking at the technical areas that can be teased out and possibly be problematic for this development going forward, you need to look at drainage and floodplain and these issues. Because water availability and wastewater availability, it's there, like it or not. And the good thing to remember is that the model rules trump everything. So that's what's going to apply, are the model rules, because of the size of these lots. But this has been very helpful for us. Is there anybody else that has a burning issue that they need to address? I know Mr. Mosty wants to address this, but I'm just trying to make sure I'm dealing with my taxpayers and citizens first. Anybody else need to say anything?
Richard, you start paying taxes.
He's a lawyer like me. Okay.
Well, I would like to say something before we hear from the attorney, and that is that all of us live in a house that once wasn't there. Anybody from 50 years ago, 75 years ago could point to where your house is. Well, some of us have houses that are older than that. But, and say, there was once a time when I hunted and fished over there, or that wasn't there, or whatever. And we've probably all done it with our kids. You drive by someplace and you go, that didn't used to be there. When I was a boy, we ran around out there and played and all that. And this is here now. This growth just happens. And I agree that it should be responsible growth. But if some, and I'm going to give the example I've given before. If the entire community of Center Point had gotten together and said, we're going to have a Dollar General, or we're going to have a Family Dollar, I would have said, don't have both. But who do you tell not to have it? Who do you say you can't have yours and they can have theirs? Who do you say that to? I would have said to both of them, it's ill-advised for you guys to fight with each other here because there's not enough business for both of them. But who flips the coin and says you don't get to do it? If all your permits are in, everything's legal, you're not trying to hurt anybody or do anything wrong, who do you tell no to? And it didn't sustain, did it? You don't have both anymore. You have one abandoned building for Center Point and one dollar store.
We're going to have on the agenda too about a bank coming up into Center Point. Should we say, no, you can't build another bank there because too many banks around?
I have to try to curb over everything, so I'm for it. And your point is valid. You know, they built both those buildings and one's abandoned. Well, if they build these houses and nobody wants them because they're like this, and it's going to just be a wasteland. And
It's
then
a
what's
possibility.
gonna happen?
And I think it's ill-advised,
It's totally
but
advised.
that's why I used the example I did.
My name is Chris Cole.
Look, I got a subdivision coming in across the street from me. Originally, it was supposed to be big 25-acre lots. Now it's gone down to something smaller. That's growth. That's what happens. As the judge said earlier, you buy your place, you don't buy the view. If you want to buy the view, keep buying stuff around you. Otherwise, that's the hill country. We all love the way it looks here, but you don't control all of it.
But it is incumbent on the Commissioner's Court to set the tenor of the kind of development we have. We realize there are restrictions, but it is incumbent upon you all to set the tenor of what you want for this. Do we want, you look at Avery, beautiful. Nobody complained about that.
Now you're talking about taste issues and aesthetics.
No, even Fox. No, that's not taste. I mean, you guys signed a resolution about low emission lights. You tell people when they come in, look, we really want to keep the light emission down. You want to do this development. That's what we want here in Kerr County. Or do they just come in and they put in what they want to put in?
It's a resolution. It's non-binding.
Oh, I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But the point is if you believe that, you impress it upon people that come here to do developments. This is the kind of stuff we want here.
Have you raised any children?
Yes, I have. And it
They
has
do-
cost me a fortune.
And they've cost you a fortune, and I've raised them, they all turned out different. I had guided them, I told them what I wanted them to do, they didn't all do that. So that's what a resolution is basically. You tell people this is the best practices, we'd like to see that happen. Maybe they follow that, maybe they have another idea. It's a non-binding resolution.
But you don't sign a resolution and then just forget about it.
There's no
You
teeth
make
in
sure
it.
you
It's a
try to
suggestion.
communicate it to the
It's a
people that come.
suggestion.
That's right, and you
Yeah.
communicate it. This
It's like
is
having a
important.
wish list. You don't always get what you want.
No, but you try to.
How does the developer's checkered past figure into this, into your
Excuse me,
decision-making?
who's speaking?
Are you aware of it?
Ben Richards.
That was a question for the court.
Well, stand up, we can't hear you.
Who's speaking?
Go to the podium, please, so everybody can hear you.
While he's going up there, Kerr mentioned a survey or something where 60% were
That was
against
my,
it.
that was my number.
That was yours?
Yeah. I
60% for, I mean, against, 40% for.
Where did those numbers come from?
Any of that 40%?
That was just my
I haven't
estimate.
heard from any of them.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Okay, please.
My name is Ben Richards. I live on Willow Bend. My question for the court is in relation to the information that gentleman provided about the past of the developer and the judgments against him. How does that figure into your decision-making? Does it, and were you aware of that?
I was aware of it, and to my knowledge, it's not in the subdivision rules. I'll defer to the county attorney at some point if the plat actually comes to us about that. But I was aware of it, and the only part of our subdivision rules that address that I'm aware of is that the person has to, or the developer has to put up a financial guarantee for all the infrastructure they're going to be putting in, or build it ahead of time. They're not going to build it ahead of time, so in this case, certainly it would be a financial guarantee.
So,
And that's the subdivision requirement. There may be some other requirements I'm not aware of, but that's the subdivision requirement.
That's really interesting that a judge would say, yes, you committed fraud, yes, you embezzled money, yes, you forged signatures, but if we just do business with you anyway.
It could have very well been against the builder of the home and the homeowner, as opposed to the subdivision.
It was,
I don't know.
it was Brandon Namkin,
I know, but it is a builder.
who is the developer, I believe.
Let
That's all I
me,
got. But
let me address your question. Initially, I did not know about that. I have since come to learn about that fact. Obviously, that is of great concern. But what I think y'all need to understand is when it comes to approving, according to the subdivision rules, the rules say what the rules say, and we can enforce the rules. And if the model rules give us the opportunity to disapprove of something, trust me, I will be ever vigilant, along with my fellow commissioners here, to do exactly that. But you need to understand the process. The legislature's done this to us 2 years ago, the last time they met before this session. We have 30 days from the time that they submit that final plat for approval to thumbs up or thumbs down. And if we thumbs down, we have to quote the actual part of the code and the rules as to why we're disapproving that. So if you really want to be constructive in opposing this subdivision, you need to look at what's in play and what's not in play. And water availability and wastewater is really not in play because they got Aqua Texas and we just put in a new East Kerr County wastewater line. So you need to look at storm drainage, floodplain, these other criteria. And if there are legitimate reasons that we can object on those bases, then I know I will and some others probably will. But that's what we have to do. We have to follow the rules. And just because somebody has a bad criminal history doesn't disqualify them if they meet all the requirements. And so I'm trying to get y'all focused back on what these requirements are, because the devil's in the detail right there. And if there's a failing in their plan that we can disapprove, we've got it. But you need to understand, if they dot every I, cross every T, this court's not going to have a choice if they do that. And so I'm just trying to get y'all focused on where you need to look.
thank you.
Just a quick question on the flood issue.
Excuse me, who's speaking?
Stand up.
This is
So if I can hear you.
Mr. Rexak.
Just a question on the flood issue. I mean, we can all attest to flooding I mean, I dug a ditch out in front of my 10 acres to reroute water that was coming across the road without this development. So-
That's part of the engineering they have to provide, is their flood plan, their flood storm drain analysis to show that it's not being more adverse than it has been in the past. And preliminary numbers I've seen, it even improves it with their retention ponds. So, but it's to be determined. We haven't seen it yet, but it's got to be. It's got to be part of it.
I guess the question comes is, how do they know what our flood issues are? Nobody's asked
Because
us.
professional engineers know how to do that.
There will be a hydrological
Yeah,
study.
yeah, there will be, yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the program, the agenda too.
They can't change the amount of water coming onto your place with any new development. That's what it comes
Texas
down to.
water law says that you cannot impound or divert water to any greater degree on your neighbor's property. And nobody knows that better than the man who's about to speak. But just a, Ms. Richards?
I was just going to let you know, Judge Kelly, that I sent you an email this morning.
Stand up, we can't hear you.
I'm Christy Richards. I sent you an email this morning that I took on July 5th. Just rain, like I said, flowing down at Center Point baseball fields of the runoff coming from that area. So I just wanted to make sure that you got that video showing you what a typical rain runoff looks like. It was unbelievable, the amount of water. So you, like I said, you have 300 homes up there. What is that runoff going to be?
Okay.
So I'm not going to pretend that I understand some of the rules that you say, but the other question that I have, if the subdivision says 150 acres allows for 75 homes, would somebody please explain to me how are they getting around with adding 300 homes? So condo regime, can you please explicitly just define what that is before you go off like Carrie said? Let's just make a condo regime. Let's make a word up and do it. That's us as Centerpoint. That's what we feel like is happening to us. If the rules say 75 homes for 150 acres, then how are we coming up with 300 homes?
I can answer that part.
Okay.
The way you're talking about that provision or subdivision rules applies to everything if it's over 5 acres in size. If it's 5 acres in size, there's another section of our rules under this, they're called the model subdivision rules. And I don't have them in front of me. I can give you the section it is.
You want it?
Yeah. It'll take me a second to find out where that is, or if Charlie's there, he can probably find it quicker.
And ma'am, did you email that to all of us?
I only had his email
Okay.
address, so I
I was
sent
gonna
it
say, I
to him,
didn't
but
get
I
it.
was concerned that it would get lost.
Well, and let me explain, this be helpful for y'all. Because we're governed by the Open Meetings Act. Once we talk to one other commissioner on this court, we're tapped out and can't talk to the others until we're in open session.
Okay.
So I'm not at liberty to forward your video that you sent me to them, but you're at liberty to send it to all of them.
Okay.
Y'all see how that works?
Yes, sir.
It starts at section 5.01G. And the rules that I'm looking at, these are the current ones.
But, well, the rules that are current are from 2009.
Charlie, why don't you go to the podium? I think it'd be helpful.
That's
Everybody can hear you.
That's what we've been going through changes. That's the update. So
Now, as we start this part, this is Charlie Hastings. He is the county engineer. And maybe other than Commissioner Letts, he's the person that knows these rules better than anyone.
The current subdivision rules and regulations that we're operating under were approved November 26, 2007. Okay? So the model subdivision regulations are section 5.09. 5.09. Additional rules and standards for subdivisions to create 2 or more lots of 5 acres or less intended for residential purposes. If you go back a few pages and it talks about what kind of density you could have and what size lot, that's related to water availability. Our water availability standards are also a part of the subdivision regulations, and they were adopted, I don't know if they were adopted in 2007 or right before 2007, but they're an appendix to the 2007 rules, and they make some assumptions about, basically they say if you follow these rules and if you stick to no more than 75 homes on 150 acres, and you have lots that are no bigger than a certain size,
then you're gonna have enough water, and you do not have to do a water availability study. The model subdivision regulations state if you have 2 or more homes, 2 or more lots that are 5 acres or less, for residential purposes, not commercial, for residential purposes, then thou shalt conduct a water availability study to see how many lots you really can get. So right now we have a developer that's got 100 and some lots that are for single family homes, and then the remainder are for RV lots, which I don't know if you can call that a home. I'm not real sure what to call it. We don't have regulations for RVs, by the way, just so y'all know.
But you can't.
But regardless, until he has turned back in the water availability study, which we will promptly forward to Headwaters Groundwater Authority to ask them to please review it, because that's kind of their bailiwick, that's their cup of tea. I will review it too from an engineering standpoint. But I'm waiting for that document. That's the magic document that tells you how many lots you really can have. And then Headwaters on top of that has said, regardless of what that study says, we have regulations that I believe Mr. Bennett stated, 80,000 gallons a year per acre is.
Quarter acre foot of water per year.
So,
And
anyway.
I will be talking with Mr. Williams about how they arrived at that 80,000 gallons, especially east Kerr County.
Stand up, nobody.
That was
If you're gonna
Mr.
talk, stand up.
Let the record reflect that was Mr. Bennett that was speaking.
That was Mr. Bennett speaking.
Willow Bend.
Willow Bend, 300. I'll be talking with Mr. Williams later this week or early next week to find out how they arrived at the 80,000 gallons per acre. Especially for East Kerr County, when that 80,000 gallons, I don't know when it was established, but all of you probably remember the 2011 drought that we had when all of the wells kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and the average water table level is approximately 40 to 60 feet below what that, before that. So that 80,000 gallons may not be viable and should flow and ebb with the level of the aquifer, especially the Middle Trinity. I found out by 2 well drillers, Edmonds and Swoop out of Bernie, that the lower Trinity has less water in that particular area at 700 feet than the Middle Trinity. So it's not viable to go drill deeper. So we have a real issue with water availability for our county, especially East Kerr County. You get past the airport, that's really East Kerr County all the way to Kendall County line. And probably beyond that. So we may be going around the back door to reduce this amount of water that's available to us in our little humble town of Center Point. So we may change the level. Might. I'll be in touch with Mr. Williams next week, later this week.
And just so you know, and I'm not going to single anybody out, but we do have 2 members of the Headwaters Board here in this room.
Well,
So
then, good.
they're paying
I don't know
attention.
them, but I'll-
They are paying attention and they are concerned.
Good.
I'm waiting for
Now-
one of them to tell us how they came up with the
That would be-
No.
Don't go there.
We don't want to do that.
That'll take forever.
But I do want to point something out that a theme that I'm hearing here. There's a lot of technical data that is going to has to be processed and analyzed in this process, right? And so when you start thinking about engineers, you start thinking about drillers, you start thinking about headwaters, the devil's going to be in the details. And so the more details you get, the better data you have, the more responsible your response is going to be. Now, we've got Mr. Mosty. Does anybody else want to say anything before we call up Mr. Mosty? Yes, ma'am? Please state your name.
Yes, Joanne Lynch,
Okay.
669.
Stand up to the podium, please.
Center Point. I have heard no one mention the problem with the ingress and egress. One road in, one road out for this entire subdivision. It just seems to me that that was not well planned on top of the other things.
TxDOT has got to address the traffic thing. Comanche Trace has one road in, one road out. So it's better to have more than one, but not a requirement.
Does Comanche Trace have the same number of homes as?
What, can you stand up?
Does Comanche Trace have the same number of homes as Center Point Village would?
More.
The judge said it earlier, if you want to stop this, you have to have a legal reason. He didn't say it that way, but he said do your homework and look for it. But that's the only way to stop something like this. All the emotion, all the aesthetics, all of the maintaining the country appeal and all that doesn't stand up in the court of law.
Mr. Mosty, floor is yours.
Well, first,
And you're not restricted to 3 minutes, but don't abuse it.
I'm Richard Mosty. I live on China Street in Center Point, Texas. And I grew up there. I can't help but add a little bit of emotion to this because just because I've been a resident, my family's been a resident of Center Point for more than 100 years. But I am going to address the specific
Speak a little bit louder.
legal issues as well. I got hearing aids, so now I don't have to speak as loud.
Yeah, but this lady can't hear you.
People have to remind me sometimes, speak up. So, but I concur with everybody. This is a terrible idea. I don't see how it's ever going to financially work. I'm a neighbor to the school, a neighbor to their former septic system that is now improved. But this whole concept, one of the things we have not talked about really is what's the impact on the old part of Center Point where I live. And the school has essentially eaten up the old residential area. It's crossed streets. It barricades streets. It's got kids in streets down by me with the bus jar. And to add, the census I looked at says that in Center Point there are between 900 and 1,000 children under 19. That's a few years back. If you add 300 homes to this at say 2, that's say one and a half. That's 300 to 400 students that you add to the Center Point School District, and I think that's a real problem. But let's focus on the real issue. One, begin with water. This place says they're going to start with stage 1 restrictions. Now, my question is the water availability study going to consider availability based on stage 1 restrictions or upon total water availability for 300 homes? As I understand, there's not going to be any outside water, no car washing. So what's going to happen is there's going to be no cover, there's going to be no grass. This year we might have a little native grass. Most years we're not. You're not going to have any trees. So what you're going to end up with is a moonscape out there where there's no water outside. Now, how does that impact the drainage study? And will the drainage study take into account what will essentially be 150 or however many lots in the house? I understand there's a storage. But there is 150 acres of what's going to be essentially be impervious cover, because it's going to be hard scrabble yards, rock yards maybe, we don't know. And so I think that from the engineering standpoint, how do you calculate drainage when it's not just going to be a simple topography issue? On the stage 1 restrictions, how does the county enforce that? Headwaters can. how does the county enforce the fact that this developer, and I'll make sure Heather has all of the background knowledge that we know about Heather. I'll give her those. And incidentally, Heather and I have been in communication, a little bit difficult with vacations and stuff, but we've been in communication to talk about, make sure I understand the legal issues, and I understand that those aren't going to be resolved today. They'll be resolved another day in another court if need be. But going to the stage 1 restrictions, and then he also says, well, if it gets to stage 2, then I'll quit renting to people. I'll cut down on my rentals to preserve water. How's the county going to enforce those? The answer is you're not. You can't. Because once this is out of the bag, it's out of the bag, and that's done. So I think those are two legal issues that need to be addressed on water availability and drainage in particular. Now, moving on to the proposed rule change, if I read that right, and I'll quote Judge Kelly, the rules say what the rules say. And today, the rule says, you're talking about dividing, and I understand Mr. Hastings' position, and I'm certainly not an authority on that, on the rules like he is. But why is the court today, after this has been on, we haven't changed the rules since 2000, well, I guess we've never changed the rules. The model subdivision rules are 06, the regulations are 07, so I guess they've never been changed. So why is the court considering today changing the language under Table 5 that says you take the acreage, you divide it by 2, which yields 75, and proposing now that you take the acreage, you divide it by 1/2, which then creates, it looks to me like that rule is tailored directly to this subdivision. So I'll echo Ms. Potter's statements of let's have some public hearings, and maybe you need to do more, that you deal with some special areas that are different areas of the subdivision regulation that have different interest bases. But it seems that there is no action is going to be taken on Center Point Village today. It seems to me that there is no purpose whatsoever in dealing with 1.15, and I would respectfully ask the court to table that for consideration on another day. Now, the last thing I want to say is I also have concerns about how this process has worked and the representation of the people of Center Point in it. I don't know whether Commissioner Moser, I can't remember whether the quote was 40% are for it, or is the question 40% have been unheard from. And I suspect it's that 40% have not voiced an opinion.
He made up those numbers, he admitted.
But in dealing with this, we know that from the Commissioners Court meetings that this was in conversation for a period of time before it came before the full Commissioners Court. And it really concerns me, some of the things that I've heard. And this is a quote from Commissioner Moser. He's talking about, we were talking to the developer. I took that to mean Commissioner Letts as well, but maybe I'm wrong about that, having heard today. But we looked at different things, sewer, water, roads were a question, and then he says, so we looked through sewer, how are we going to solve that? So we said, aha, condominium regime could do it. This is apparently a conversation between Commissioner Moser and the developer, where we came up with a way for a condominium regime to do it. And now we sit here and say, that's we, the developer. Now we sit here today and say, we, the Commissioners Court, don't have authority over all this stuff. And now we're also saying to us, we, the people of Centerpoint, are going to have to live with whatever you do. And that's with two commissioners who are not going to be on the court much longer than another term. But we are the ones that are going to have to live with it. So I get what you legally can and can't do. But, you know, when you do things, when you take a legal opinion, you can also inject in it what are the facts and what lens do I look through this. And the lens that you ought to be looking through is these people right here. And if there is a way to stop it, stop it. And if you feel like you can't, then perhaps the courts will later have to decide. But find a way to stop it. And you have that in your authority to do that. Thank you.
Richard, just for clarification, when the for condominium regimes, that was in a group meeting with everybody that I talked about, headwaters, groundwater, UGRA, school, WCID, county engineer. That's when the condominium regime first came out on the table, okay? It had to do with connecting or providing the sewer, the wastewater to WCID and their requirements on it. So that's where that came up. It wasn't between any two individuals or anything. That's
who brought that to the table?
I think it was probably, Commissioner, I think it was probably Brandon Nampkin that proposed that, okay?
Well,
yeah. And that's when WCID said, yes, if it's a condominium regime, then we can work with that and we don't have to stick with the requirements of each household being considered into the availability of WCID.
Well, it occurs to me that a lot of legal decisions were being made early on or being considered that may or may not be true.
Considered is the right word, not decision.
That now finds us where we are today.
But what you said is correct. Being considered is the right word, not decisions. No decisions are made in any of those meetings.
Well, I think that the ball got rolling way too fast without having been thoroughly vetted.
And just for clarification.
And that leads us to where we are here now with a mess.
Just for clarification, some of the meetings that were held was the concept, could the concept even be approved, okay? Because there was water, there was sewer, there was regulations, all those kind of things. If the concept was not viable, okay, then it needs to stop right then. Then it needs to come to court. Then it came to the court for concept approval.
Well, they didn't come to the court.
Yes, it did.
They eventually came to the court,
yes,
but all of this background stuff was done, from what I read in the record, before it comes to the court.
Richard, and you know as well as anybody, okay, we look at concepts, okay, that can't even pass the first step. No need to come to the court.
Well, most of them stop with Charlie Hastings.
Let me finish. If the concept is okay, then it comes to court for concept approval. And that's what this was.
Well,
I'll
tell you, the perception out here is that particularly Commissioner Mosier has been a cheerleader for this project as opposed to representing the interests of the Centerpoint.
That can be. Perception is reality, but that's not a fact. Okay? You deal in facts, I know, as an attorney.
And why was it necessary to quadruple?
Stand up, please.
Why was it necessary to quadruple the amount of lots or homes on that acreage? Why not just have the developer meet our model subdivision rule guidelines? And I do know that, I think it was in the January 20-something meeting when I was here, that it was asked of the developer, why not just lessen the amount of homes in your plan? well, that wouldn't be economically feasible. So now we're getting into the court courting the developer's wants. And that's been evident in both of your town halls. You basically just left your pom-poms at home.
Order in the court.
That's really rude.
Order in the court.
That's rude.
Are there any other comments anybody wants to make? Yes, sir. Go to the podium.
My name is Bob Beddick, and you've heard from my wife Susie. We live at 7750 Target Hill Road in East Kerr County. I just wanted to offer a few thoughts, and I'll try to be brief. Many of the commissioners, well, I won't say many, some seem to be of the impression that the Uniform Condominium Act passed by the state trumps the local subdivision rules and regs. No. I'm getting head shaking no. If we have agreement on that, then maybe I can be really brief and sit down.
Well, I'm speaking as a lawyer.
And I'm a
I know the
retired
answer to that
lawyer, many
question.
of you know.
And I've never heard anybody even say what you just said, even thought it.
I might have made a comment to that effect that it doesn't apply, and parts of it do apply, parts of it don't apply. There's some case law, I understand, that basically says that condominiums are considered subdivisions or can be considered subdivisions. It's pretty old case law, but it's probably still valid.
Well, Greg Richards, a local attorney, had written to, I believe, Ms. Stebbins and said, here's an AG opinion, Attorney General opinion, that says that basically, condominium schemes or regimes, trump local subdivision rules. You read that Attorney General opinion, or Ms. Stebbins can certainly read it for you. It says the exact opposite. It says that, state law provides, the Condominium Act provides, that no local authority can interfere with the filing of a concept plan and plat. No authority. And then the AG goes on and says, but that doesn't stop the county from requiring a plat or from otherwise regulating the development. And then I'm going to move on to a second point. My understanding, and I'm still trying to find out facts too, is that the reason the county adopted these model subdivision rules in 2007 was to make itself eligible for financial aid from the state of Texas, which I believe even afforded the county this sewage line that runs all the way from Kerrville to Comfort. They were required by the Texas Water Code and by the Texas Water Development Board, they being the county, to adopt these model subdivision rules. And so we say, well, but we have the discretion to change them. Well, perhaps you do, but it's a betrayal of the promise made to the state of Texas. If suddenly you make radical departures from what was agreed in order to obtain the financing for these water projects.
Let me clear that up, because in a lawyer-to-lawyer conversation, I have visited with our outside counsel from Austin, Mr. Chuck Kimbrough, and he has reaffirmed we are obligated to follow the model rules with regard to these condominiums.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. And you are correct, sir, that the reason we adopted the model rules was for the financing, to get EDAP financing for the sewer project that went from Center Point to Comfort. That's the reason. But, those rules are what come up with the water availability requirements, not the balance of our subdivision rules.
Okay, before leaving this topic, I would like to say something to y'all and to the public. Some of y'all remember the great humorist Will Rogers. He said, laws are like sausage, it's better not to see them made. Well, what you've experienced today is this is sausage. This is how government works. And sometimes it's messier than we like. But the good thing is that we're all here together, that you came and you talked to us and you ask us questions and we've responded. And this is the way a community works, and this is the way Kerr County needs to work, and we want it to work. That's what this court wants it to work. I hope you've learned that we can't just arbitrarily vote against this because we don't like it. We got to have good cause. We have to have a legal basis to do it. And it's going to take probably some expert testimony from somebody, depending on how far this thing goes. And it's ultimately going to be a contest between experts, and we start talking about drainage and water availability and all these other criteria. But it's been good to have you here today. I know probably most of you are going to leave as soon as we move on to the next agenda item. But I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank you for the passion that you've shared with us. This is your home, and we are your elected representatives. And every single one of you know you are one of my constituents. I run countywide, so you belong to me, and I'm accountable to you. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today, and let's take a short break, allow people to move around.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I've been kind of quiet through all this. You know, I'm at the other end of the county. But I feel like I've talked about half of that have called me and what have you on this ordeal. And I can tell you, every one of them heard from me that I didn't care for it. I didn't like it at all. But sometimes our hands are tied. Y'all are helping this process. Today was the first time I've heard anything about the developer, some of his past problems. That's the first time. So anyway, once you know we listen to you. I answer my phone. So y'all have anything else, holler at me.
Now, I did hear one new thing today that I hadn't heard. And I've visited with a lot of you and some of your neighbors. But I've heard that this is probably not going to end here. There's going to be litigation no matter what happens at this level. And it's important for the developer to understand this is a long, expensive road.
Yep.
As a comment, so when you're talking about you weren't aware of that, one of the things y'all really need to believe is that we don't talk to each other on these issues at all. I mean, I've been in Commissioner Mosier with some meetings on this, so I don't talk to anybody else about this one. I talk to the judge on issues, then I don't talk to any of the rest of them unless we're in court. So it's it appears that we don't know what's going on. Sometimes we don't until we get into open court.
Literally, 3 of us on this court have not heard something until we meet here. I may have talked to Commissioner Letts, I may have talked to Commissioner Mosier. He and I are talking about aggregate production right now, and operators.
Commissioner Letts and I talk about subdivision rules.
But 3 of
and
us.
I talk about information technology. That's it. We can't talk to one another.
But when we walk in this room, you need to know that 3 of us don't have a clue what we're about to hear.
And we have a mother down here that watches over us like a mother hen.
So
Okay?
watch the old YouTube videos, and when you see 3 people's eyebrows go up, when yours do, you know we just heard it the first time too, just like you did. So I've sat at this spot and just about dropped my jaw a couple of times when I heard something, and you feel, blindsided by it. Those are the rules in the state of Texas. This is transparency is what we're talking about. Even if we talk to each other in the hall, that's it. That's all you got.
And there are criminal penalties to violating that, by the way. We go to jail and get fined. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
A little bit.
Let's come back to order. Okay, believe it or not, we have some work to do. We're going to do it quickly. So, I see Ms. Lands is not here. Do we need to go ahead?
You got a 9:45.
Oh, yeah, I've got to do the timed items. 9:45. 1.17, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding establishing a Kerr County Advisory Committee for aggregate production operations and board membership.
Judge, we've talked about this in the past, and I've provided to all the commissioners a draft of what the advisory council would look like. It's modeled after the advisory committees that we have for animal control and support, and one other advisory committee I'm not thinking of right now. It was modeled after that, so it sets up a committee which is formed of, which will consist of a county commissioner, one or two, someone from the city, the aggregate production operators, 3 of those, 3 citizens, to be a total of 10 people on the committee. And the purpose of it is to have a forum by with which the public, the operators, can communicate, and it will it'll enable that to try to reach a balance between what the citizens want and what the operators can do. And we've had several examples of that without having a formal committee as such, in which people are complaining about lights. They were concerned about radio frequency from some of the operations at the things. We've met individually, or those operators met with the airport authority. I think that was resolved. They met with individuals. I think some of those things have been resolved. So this is to establish a committee by with which those concerns and issues can be brought to the table without authority to implement anything, but just to provide a forum by which to discuss and listen. So with that, I would propose, there's the thing that's in there, there's a TBD in there, and that's under which legal authority we can set this up. So I'll ask the county attorney to provide any legal authority we have to do that. And with that, I would move that we adopt the policy.
A second question. Policy looks fine. How does it get populated?
We're going to populate it.
Okay.
Yeah, right now, we haven't said who's chairing or anything, but it would be populated by, in the first meeting, our consultant will be there to help us establish a committee also. Okay. Jill Shackle.
And this will be modeled on previous that
yes,
she's
right,
done.
Right.
Well, I'm going to second it with an amendment.
Okay.
And that, I'd like to see 11 people. My experience on boards is you always need to have an odd number.
Yeah, 11 is correct.
And the other thing that I would like to do, I would see, we don't have to put it in the I guess the bylaws here. I would like to have as many of the operators out there as possible participate in this board in one capacity or another, because I think it's important to have them at the table. So that they're talking to the homeowners, they're talking to the business people, they're talking to the elected officials. I also would like to see that we have ex officio members of our state representative, Andy Murr, and he can designate his representative, Kelly Early, to appear. Mm-hmm. Same thing for our state senator, Don Buckingham, and B. Pernada can be her representative. But I want to have the public officials represented. And Andy's has done a lot of work in the aggregate area, and I think we need to keep him close and let him know exactly what we're doing. The whole purpose is to establish best management practices out there. Now, as that's my second with the amendments in it. Okay. Just teasing it out a little bit.
I accept that.
But the reason that this is on the agenda today, and we're kind of rushing this, and would like to get that board populated today if possible, is because we have a great opportunity. For those of you that know, Ingram Ready Mix has a batch plant here in Kerrville, in the city limits, and they have a lot of traffic. and they're getting most of their aggregate out there off 27. And those trucks are running back and forth. Earl Ingram is very supportive of what we're trying to do. He's been a very responsible and cooperative operator. And he has filed an application with TCEQ that's set to be heard October 10. At
August
6
10th.
August 10, yeah, August 10, that's incorrect. August 10 at 6 p.m. at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. And what he's proposing to do is to close his City of Kerrville badge plant and move his facilities out to where West Texas Aggregates is, who is the new player in town that we're trying to get to come to the table and cooperate with us. And I think that from what I hear, they're going to be more cooperative as we go forward, I'm hoping.
Why don't you tell them where they're located?
Well, yeah,
It's behind Fox Tank. for those
Right
who don't
across
know.
from the airport.
It's right behind, between Fox Tank and the river, where this new West Texas aggregate plant is.
Now, the good news here, this is really a win-win situation. We're moving a batch plant out of the city, we're moving all that traffic and the emissions and the dust and everything that goes with it out to the rural part of the county, to an existing facility. But because they're going to have that batch plant out there, they're going to have to pave the entrance to that facility that is not presently paved.
But the road that they're going to take most often in and out is a TxDOT road.
Yes.
Which removes
We don't maintain.
burden from the county, yeah.
So we're going to reduce emissions, we're going to reduce dust, we're going to reduce traffic, and it is truly a win-win situation. And what I would like for our advisory council to do in our very first public outing is to be able to appear before the TCEQ, arm in arm with our operators, saying this is a best management practice that we can support, and start off on a cooperative foot, a collaborative foot moving forward. And so I got it erased. We worked to get it on the agenda as soon as we could, so that we would have actually a formal existence when we appear. We don't just say, well, we hope to be the advisory council. And so, and I was visiting with Commissioner Moser. This is my two. I tapped out with him on this. So you're hearing it for the first time, Harley.
Yeah.
This morning we were talking about, and Commissioner Moser has approached me with your retirement to chair this, and I have agreed to chair the advisory council. And I have reached out to the city. I've personally talked to E.A. Hoppy and reached out to Mike Hayes. And the city has agreed to participate with us. We don't know who they're going to designate, but it's something that we want to make sure that they're seated at the table too, so there's some uniformity in how we approach these problems. And this is a very distinct precinct 2. I see some precinct 2 people still here. It's a precinct 2 problem that we're trying to address. But we're talking about Francis Lovett. Was it Mike Ross?
Mike Russ.
Russ, R-U-S-S. Al Dingman, Nathan Fox, Earl Ingram, I forget Mr. Wheatcraft's first name.
Curtis.
And then we've got Mr. Early from Martin Marietta.
Correct. Ken Early.
And then, who was Hayes? I'm trying to remember.
Jim Hayes. Is that who that is?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Jim Hayes.
But we're trying to populate our board so that we can have an official presence. Whether we have it fully fleshed out or not is not near as important. But this is something that needs to be done. And let me just plug Jill Shackelford. She has just been a whirlwind. That's probably the best money we ever spent to get somebody to get something done for us. And she's established very good relationships with the operators, very good relationships with the neighbors and the businesses. She's basically brought this thing together. And so now it's our turn to take the ball and run with it.
And the only other thing I'd say is there were people that's against us hiring a consultant. Didn't like it. Okay. But we did it, and it's where we are today. And if we adopt these bylaws and establish this, it's my understanding this will be the first in the state. So I think it's very good.
The Hayes was Mike Hayes. We're trying to get Mike Hayes.
Okay, Mike.
From the city.
From the
you
city.
have city.
Oh, yeah.
You have county representatives, you have the operators, and then you have property owners.
Public.
And businesses.
Yeah. And
Fox
businesses.
Tank.
Fox Tank, so a neighbor, basically, a neighboring business, and property owners in the area, city, county, and what was the There's 5 different groups.
That's it.
The groups are,
City, county, operators, property owners, and a neighboring business. Okay, that's fine.
and candidly, with this being as close to the airport as it is, I'd probably like to have somebody from the airport board.
You said 11. You're over it.
Well, wherever we are. Are we?
Yeah. We'll populate, I think the idea is to pass the bylaws, with the bylaws today, then populate the committee. Unless you want to populate the committee today.
We need to populate it today because we don't meet before the 10th.
Okay.
You don't have to have all the, if you want to add another one later, you can always add. I'd go with what you have and we can always modify.
Okay, but we're going to limit it to 11. Okay.
James Avery might be a good one.
Well, that's the reason I said 11, you got to set the framework.
Right.
Then you can start populating it.
And I think they would have a big issue with
Why don't we, if you want to do that, let me generate a list real quick based on what we just said.
Sure.
And see if we're within 11.
The judge has a list.
I got a list.
Okay.
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 And the airport could be ex officio now.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah, that didn't change the motion in the second.
Right.
I have a question on the motion in the second. I have Letz's seconding. So that
I'll withdraw my second, let the judge have his second.
With the amendments.
So here, and count these off.
Okay.
Kelly, Lovett, Russ, Dingman, Fox, Ingram, Wheatcraft, Early, Hayes. 9, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Correct.
Aren't there some other
Wait,
You count yourself?
Okay.
I did.
No. Oh, you didn't count yourself.
I did count myself. So that's 9.
We told you. Told
Okay.
you how this works.
And
so what I'm saying is airport,
And city?
Avery.
Yep, you mentioned city?
City's on here.
Okay.
That would take us to 11.
okay, good enough. Now then, the other thing is, we will have just one person from Commissioner's Court. So you just got one there.
Yeah, I know.
Well, because if,
I'm just talking about my experience, and we were talking about this with KEDC. When we put more than one of us on a board, it really limits who all we can talk to. We get better variety and mix if we just send one of us over to the board, and then they can decide who it is they want to talk to before we come into this room.
But you can have an alternative, you can have an alternate, so that the county's always represented.
well, I think
Which could be
Commissioner
anybody.
Letts and I found having 2 on there has been very, on KEDC has been very useful. Used to just be 1. Okay. But anyway, let's do with what you said, single member from the court. That's 11. Okay, good. So amend it to include those people in the
So
motion.
we're going to amend the motion to include
Right,
these 9
right.
people?
Correct.
Okay, I second that. I'm good with that. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Good deal.
That sausage wasn't so ugly, was it?
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the 10 o'clock items. Is Charlie outside? No, they're there, okay. Item 1.18 is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the Commissioners Court approval for a position restructuring in the Road and Bridge Department. Ms. Hoffer.
We're not adding anything to our list. All we're doing is we're taking an 18 position from the field, which is a heavy equipment operator 1, and bringing it into the mechanic shop. We've got somebody that I really do think probably should be paid at an 18 level. So all we're doing is flipping titles, but we're not changing anything. It actually, we went through our position schedule. I sent to Jennifer. I also sent to Jonathan. It's a $14,000 savings to do this.
Savings.
Savings.
We like savings.
I move for approval.
Second.
So you made the motion? And who seconded? Motion been made by Commissioner Ballou, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to approve the position restructuring in the Road and Bridge Department as presented. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Item 1.19, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to waive plating oversight and approval to the City of Kerrville for a revision of plat for Saddlewood Estates, Section 1, Block 1, lots 18 and 19, with conditions that Kerr County Environmental Department and Kerr County Floodplain Administrator review, approve, and sign the plat. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal revises and combines lots 18 and 19, 3.01 acres each, into lot 18R, 6.02 acres, with frontage on Saddlewood Boulevard and Springwood Lane. It is in Kerrville's ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and it would typically be platted through both the City of Kerrville and Kerr County simultaneously. This request is for the court to waive plating oversight and approval to the City of Kerrville. Although plating oversight may be waived, signature blocks for both the Kerr County Floodplain Administrator and OSSF designated representative would be required. That's for septic systems. Roads and right-of-way in Saddlewood are private. Therefore, there is no need for Kerr County to review and approve. The county engineer requests the court consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to waive plating oversight and approval to the City of Kerrville for a revision of plat for Saddlewood Estates, Section 1, Block 1, lots 18 and 19, with conditions that Kerr County Environmental Department and Kerr County Floodplain Administrator review, approve, and sign plat. Volume 6, page 319 through 321, Precinct 1.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion is made by Commissioner Baloo, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the waiving of plat oversight for the City of Kerrville for revision of plat for Saddlewood Estates as presented. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Next item is item 1.20. Consider, discuss, and provide input regarding a concept plan for 11.55 acres on Depot Alley in Center Point. Mr. Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal divides an 11.546 acre tract of at the end of Depot Alley into 2 lots. This is in Center Point. The property is in the floodplain and must meet requirements for development within the floodplain, including doing a flood study. The property owner is requesting the court allow lots to have 20 to 25 foot of frontage each. Section 7.04, access to roads of the Kerr County Subdivision Rules and Regulations require 150 feet of lot frontage, but it also states that the minimum lot frontage distances may be reviewed by the Commissioner's Court and lesser distances may be approved based on lot density, topography, and other mitigating factors recommended by the County Subdivision Administrator. Subdivisions within a high-density development area and where the above minimum lot frontages are not practical will be considered on a case-by-case basis. This is in a high-density development area. It's in Center Point. And it's at the end of Depot Alley. If you've driven out there, you'll see Depot Alley ends, and that's right where their development begins. They're requesting that the court consider a lesser distance before they go through hiring a surveyor to do all of the plat. They want to see if you are okay with that beforehand. Again, this is a concept plan, so this is where the court can give their input and let them know maybe what you think.
Charlie and I met with the owner of this property, and it's described a little bit, Charlie, there, it's the primary is how many acres?
About 11 and a half.
About 11 and a half acres.
Cut it in half.
And they're looking to sell 2 acres on the backside. They need to have access, and so
Yes.
the young man that's proposing to do this, it's all family oriented for the passage and the small frontage on the road to accommodate this, so.
And he changed that 2 acres in the back to 3.
Okay.
Just so you know.
So it certainly looks acceptable to me. It looks acceptable to Charlie, and so.
And he's on a water system out there.
Right. So this is a resident, young man. He's in the Army right now. He'd been here to talk about it, but he's in Montana serving right now. So I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Baloo, to approve a concept plan for 11.55 acres on Depot Alley in Center Point. Any discussion?
Question, Charlie, just to get my bearings, that lower portion of that lot, that's the old railroad right of way, is that correct?
I believe it goes through there.
The reason I'm bringing it up, my recollection is that in looking at the flooding issue, that right of way was potentially going to be a way to get water to Steel Creek. Because it was still, it's a spot there. Anyway, I don't know that we can do anything about that right now, but it's just, that was an area, as I recall, that we were looking at, because there was, it was like a logical area, there's like a berm right there, you could almost put it on the upper side of it. Anyway, it was just I remember talking about that at one point.
This really doesn't change anything.
It doesn't change anything about that, and I don't think that we can require, I'm just, just pointing it out that it is that lower part of that.
We can mention it to their surveyor when they do they have to do a floodplain study, which is a little different than storm drainage outfall, which is what we're talking about. Just because a portion of this property is in a studied area and then the study ends. Right about the location you're talking about, and then the rest of it's unstudied, and they've got to identify the base flood elevations for more of that property in that area.
It was just a comment. You just might mention it to them that there's, maybe good just to leave that alone. That property may have to be acquired at some point or for a right of way.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. Those in favor of the concept plan as presented, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.21, information and discussion concerning proposed stormwater drainage projects adjacent to State Highway 27 in East Kerr County.
Stormwater drainage along State Highway 27 and in the Center Point area backs up onto State Highway 27 during large storm events at multiple locations. These locations were analyzed by TxDOT and their engineers during a recent expansion or upgrade of the State Highway 27 road facility, and TxDOT enlarged various highway culverts to accommodate the larger stormwater conveyance under their highway as a result. We all are aware of that, and also that the ones that are not being used are plugged because they're not in use yet. The next step is to convey said stormwater from the highway culverts to the Guadalupe River. Pursuant to the State Highway 27 upgrades in the Center Point area, 3 locations have been identified where stormwater will overflow the highway and have been labeled on the attached map as culverts A, B, and C. Culvert A is located at State Highway 27 and Willow Bend Road. Culvert B is located at State Highway 27 and Coldwell Lane. And Culvert C is located at State Highway 27 and Sutherland Road. In order to handle stormwater from Culvert A at Willow Bend Road, the existing approximately quarter-mile long drainage ditch flowing south will need to be enlarged, including enlargement of an existing culvert under Center Point River Road and installation of a storm drainage outfall structure down to the river. Stormwater from Culvert B at Coldwell Lane will require similar work as Culvert A. However, the ditch is approximately half a mile long, and the crossing of Center Point River Road is a low water crossing currently, so there may not need to be culverts installed on Center Point River Road at that location. Similar to culverts A and B, stormwater from culvert C at Sutherland Road will require a drainage ditch flowing south. The Sutherland Road drainage project is an existing funded project, and all engineering, surveying, and easement acquisition is anticipated to stay within the budgeted amount of $25,000. The next step for Sutherland Road drainage is to enter into a contract with a licensed professional engineer once the scope and fees have been determined. The county engineer will place this on the court agenda later this summer. The Willow Bend Road and Coldwell Lane drainage projects are not currently funded, but being considered in the 2021-22 budget process. It is anticipated that $150,000 is an appropriate amount to budget for engineering, surveying, and easement acquisition. Part of the engineering scope would be to determine an appropriate construction budget for the following fiscal year 2022-23. It is recommended to budget $1.5 million as a placeholder for construction if it becomes necessary to show these preliminary anticipated costs. Otherwise, wait till the engineering is done. A fourth location between Center Point and Comfort has been identified as an area that floods over State Highway 27. This is generally between Lane Valley Road and Herman Sons Road. However, it should be noted that 1.5 linear miles of State Highway 27 in this area is located in the floodplain. Because this special flood hazard area is so long and large, it is anticipated that installation of drainage ditches will not mitigate the flooding during large storm events. Everything will be inundated. To correct the issue would require elevating the highway which is not cost effective considering the frequency of flooding events for this stretch of road. So it's on our radar screen. Right now, I recommend that we would stick with these culverts A, B, and C that are back in the center point area and keep the other area between Lane Valley and Herman Sons Road on our radar screen. This is information and discussion on.
Yeah, I asked Charlie to bring this forward to the court because it shows on the map the acreage that goes through these culverts. Like the one at Culvert A is over 4,000 acres that drain through that area, okay? Culvert, excuse me, 300 acres in Culvert A, and that's what we're talking about in Center Point Village today. And then there's other regions of 4,000 acres that are flowing through Center Point and Steel Creek. And this will come up as part of the budget process, but we did not have the $150,000 in there for the engineering study. And so, Charlie, you're recommending that we proceed with the engineering study on this today, or just for information?
Information and discussion. I know that when we were at the budget workshop the other day, that the court had given direction to budget a certain amount. Tanya can speak to that. Did you put $150,000? We met in the hallway, and I said, I think $150,000 would cover engineering, surveying, and easement acquisition. And since then, I met with a licensed professional engineer who confirmed and said, that's a good number.
Okay, there, a comment, going to go up to the judges 30,000 feet. The state has put a rush on flood planning, and they put a date of August 31st to have plans starting to present. I mean, concepts. It's not necessarily engineered plans.
Placeholder.
It's placeholders, really. So this one needs to go on, but I think also the one at Sutherland, which you didn't talk about, not Sutherland.
Lane Valley area?
No, the by Colvin's property.
Caldwell?
No, that's not
Jay
Caldwell.
You're talking about
and I didn't even identify that one.
It's by Boardwalk. It's between kind of Boardwalk and.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's one there.
We need to add that then to the radar screen.
Right, look that on the right, and I would put the Lane Valley. I want to meet with you out there because it's not that big of a stretch. It's only an area about the width of this room that's a problem.
Okay.
And in a big rain, and it's there's already an easement that we all know that Kelly knows about. It goes to the river partially.
That wouldn't be part of the same study.
No, there's three
You're talking
spots.
about three different places.
Right.
And this would be the most pressing of the most traffic.
Right.
Okay.
And then we also have the flood warning system. Would be part of the. So before would be presented or put to the flood planning group, and I'm an alternate to that, so I'm kind of in the loop on what they're doing with that. But we have until August 31st to finalize. I mean,
So this is for information, part of the budget, and I was advocating $1.5 million in there. We said no, let's just do a $150,000 study. So that's what this is for. For A, B, and C's for $150,000. So do we need to amend that to do the other things you're talking about?
I think that if they get funded by the state, there'll be some sort of a match. I think 150 is probably sufficient right now.
Okay, good enough. So no action, other than the fact when we go to the budget, then we'll make sure that that 150,000 is in the budget. Okay.
So no action?
I don't think.
I believe that Commissioner Letts had also, during the budget process, had identified $50,000 for flood warning.
Right.
You mentioned the flood warning.
Yeah, that's a different thing other than flood. That's flood warning though. That's the sirens.
But to be clear, there's three culverts that we just talked about here. A and B would be the 150,000.
A, B, and C is 150,000.
And C is Sutherland, and it's already funded.
Well, okay, so let's just say A, B, and C.
Together,
we got
175.
150,000, right.
175.
Right. Okay.
175 if you add them together. Okay. Sutherland's already funded.
Okay, I got you.
At 25.
Okay.
So we can set that to the side. We just need to hire an engineer.
A and B's 150.
We can hire an engineer at the next court meeting.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to take action to hire the engineer? You're going to put that on a future agenda?
Future agenda, yes, sir.
Okay, good enough. So This is information.
And then if A and B are approved through the budget process, then we'll hire an engineer to do that
Okay.
also later.
Okay, good deal.
But
Got it.
in the fall.
Charlie, thank you.
You're
I think it's just very interesting to look at the areas that those culverts accommodate. Huge. Okay, thanks, Charlie.
Okay, the last timed item that we have is item 1.22. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to authorize the placement of signs reading Kerr County property, authorized personnel only, for portions of Shepherd Reese Road. Charlie Hastings.
The portion of Shepherd Reese Road from the State Hospital south to the entrance of the Horizon Subdivision, formerly known as Roller Coaster Hill, was relocated and reconstructed about 15 years ago to address overly steep grades, inadequate road width, and other safety issues. It is classified as an arterial, and traffic is projected to increase over the next 10 years as the area continues to develop. It was reconstructed on an embankment. Both sides of the steepest sections have guardrails, thus limiting access to the former road and adjacent properties. The shoulder is about 4 feet wide on each side. It is striped as a double yellow, meaning passing is forbidden, and the speed limit is 45 miles per hour. There are 2 access points on the west side along this stretch intended and meant only for road and bridge crews for maintenance and material storage purposes. That's how we access the old Roller Coaster Hill area, and we store material there. We tried to build up the embankments to make it not as steep, make it safer. One point of access is suitable for entrance only, while the other can be used as an entrance or an exit. However, use of either access point can only be done with extreme caution by trained road and bridge employees driving road and bridge equipment. Nobody else should be driving on those. The use of these access points by an untrained motorist is not advised. A public hearing was held at 10 a.m. on July the 14th, 2021 to allow the public to speak concerning placement of these signs and restrictions, and nobody spoke for or against it. The county engineer recommends that the court authorize the placement of signs reading Kerr County property, authorized personnel only, for the county maintained portions of Shepherd Reese Road from the State Hospital south to the entrance of the Horizon Subdivision Precinct 1.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Ballou, seconded by Commissioner Moser, to approve placing the signs on Shepherd Reese Road as presented. Any discussion?
Charlie, what was the issue here? We getting four-wheelers in there, or people go four-wheeling, or what was?
It just was something that was brought to my attention recently, and when we went out there to look at it, I think a lot of it is because we're hauling spoils from our road projects to that area to reuse and recycle. And so when we drove down there to observe that being done, we said, this is dangerous. And then we understood from some of the property owners that folks will drive and use that area to watch the fireworks for 4th of July. And I cannot fathom a family after those events trying to pull out. It's very scary.
Okay.
Okay. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous 5-0. Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Let's go back on the agenda to item 1.5, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to surplus various items of furniture from the district clerk's inventory.
They had jury selection, so not shouldn't be here, but she's got the list behind her.
Got the list, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Ballou, to approve the list of items of furniture that have been presented in their attachments. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.6, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept furniture donation from Tom Pollard. Got a call from Judge Pollard, who says he's got a whole bunch of furniture over there, some of which is in real good shape, some of which is not.
Over in his office?
Yep. And he's offered it up to the county.
They got any jackalopes or any of that stuff they have over there? He has a lot of that sort
He does. I don't know what he's doing with that.
I move for approval. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Ballou, to accept the furniture donation from Tom Pollard. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.7, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a request from the Extension Office to put a handicap parking sign in their parking lot. Shane Evans.
Yes, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. They did request a handicap parking. They don't have a handicap parking sign there right now, and they asked me to take care of that. asked Road and Bridge and said if it was a regulatory sign, and I was informed that it is a regulatory sign, so asking for y'all's permission now to put a handicap parking lot sign at the Ag Extension.
Does
Move for
anything have,
approval.
does something have to be painted on it too? On the parking lot or just the sign?
I can have just a sign. Yeah, just a sign. Now, if I need to eventually make it like a van handicap parking, then I would have to put, have
Markers on
the marking on the sides.
Sign order.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve putting a handicap sign at the Extension office. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.8, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the nomination committee selection of a county employee to participate in the Kerr County Leadership Class of 2021-22 and submit the application to the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce. And I understand we're on a short time deadline on this one, right?
Yes, sir, we're on a short time deadline. And so we've got the court has to make a decision today on who they choose to go through that programming. There are 3 of us on the committee. One of them recused herself because one of us nominated her. So Tracy and I have nominated Jennifer Doss to go through the Kerr County Leadership Program.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve appointing Jennifer Doss to attend the Kerr County Leadership Class of the 2021-22 year. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you.
You are now officially our representative.
Get busy.
It's a good course.
Yeah.
Item 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and adopt the revised Kerr County budget calendar for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Good afternoon.
This is James Rogers.
Hint.
We are presenting a revised budget calendar that takes into account the 87th legislative Senate Bill 1357. The major change you'll see would be on the second page. The current calendar has us voting to adopt the budget on September 13th. This revises it to August 23rd, following the public hearing on the proposed budget. The good news is we don't have to change or add any meetings. We already have planned meetings for this. Just moving up the time frame.
I move for approval. Second.
Motion been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Ballou to approve the revised Kerr County budget calendar as presented. Commissioner Moser, I would turn to you because we tentatively have set on the 23rd, which would be the day we adopt the budget, swearing in of your successor. And this would be a good opportunity for you to have one last vote, if you'd like.
No, I'll do that. And I think, James and I talked about that earlier.
Then what I would do to accommodate that is we'll put the swearing in more towards the end of the meeting.
Okay, good.
It would be so unfair to ask somebody to come in and vote on the budget.
Sure.
That hadn't participated in it.
Great. I think it's a good idea.
So with that, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Very good. Next item is 1.10. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the resignation of Kenneth Wilkie as Constable in Precinct 3. Mr. Letts.
Yes, Ken is out of town right now. I think he's on his way back to Texas from Colorado, but he sent me an email. He told me this verbally. He did send me an email that he is resigning effective, I think it was August 1st. We're the end of that pay period right around the first pay, end of the first pay period in early August. So I just wanted to announce that to the public that he has submitted his resignation based on the county attorney's request. He's going to send a letter, give me a letter when he gets back, but he has sent me the email. That's it.
So do we have to,
No action.
no action?
Do we have to accept it?
You can have to accept it.
Okay. Make a motion that we accept the resignation of Kenneth Wilkie as Constable, Precinct 3.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to accept the resignation of Kenneth Wilkie as Constable Precinct 3. Any other discussion?
I will make a comment on this because there's a little bit of unusual situation, and it kind of relates to the, why don't you call the next item first? Then I can explain the unusual situation.
Item 1.11, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action. Did we vote to accept?
Oh, we better, yeah, let's go ahead and accept
Okay.
that.
So all those in favor of accepting the resignation, raise your hand. 5-0 unanimous. Let's call 1.11. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on appointing successor for Constable of Precinct 3 to replace Kenneth Wilkie.
Okay. Most will probably remember that there was an election last year, and Paul Gonzalez was elected to be Constable Precinct 3. At that time, he was the resource officer at KISD at Tybee High School. And because of some changes at KPD and some other things, he felt that it was really important for him to maintain that position at Tybee High School as a KPD resource officer. But he was very interested. He wanted to do this, but he couldn't do both. He wanted to be a constable, he couldn't do both. At the time, I talked to Ken Wilkie and asked Ken if he would continue as long as he wanted to, and to remain as constable. That would have some continuity, and let Paul decide what he wanted to do and where he was going to end up. And he has since, they have restructured the resource officer over there. He's comfortable leaving, and he would like to be the constable. I can think of no one better to be Constable Precinct 3.
He was duly elected.
Yeah, he was elected by the public. And, you know, he was here this morning. He's in a meeting right now. I just texted him. He said that unfortunately he can't come back, but I know he definitely would like to. So it's a little bit of an unusual situation. Usually we go out for applications and all that, but I think that Paul should be appointed. So I'll make a motion to appoint Paul Gonzalez as the constable, the new constable for Precinct 3, upon the resignation of Kenneth Wilkie.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Ballou, to approve the appointment of Paul Gonzalez to serve as the Constable for Precinct 3 upon Kenneth Wilkie's resignation.
What's the effective date? Is there an effective date?
It'll be effective.
Whatever his effective date is.
Ken's last day.
We think it's the end of the first pay period in August.
Okay, early August.
Okay, well, I would like to say that I've known Paul Gonzalez a long time, and he taught the police academy, Citizens Police Academy, and he's a great person and a great law enforcement officer, and was great with those kids over at Tybee High School, and would be a great addition to the county, in my opinion. I also want to thank Kenneth Wilkie because when Paul answered his conscience, and we respected that, so that he did not take office as constable, we approached Ken and asked him to stay on. And I respect his decision to stay on. We appreciate that. And I respect his decision that it's time for him to leave. He's ready for his retirement. So I think we've got two great people here, one on the way out and one on the way in, but this is a win-win for the county, in my opinion.
Great.
So with that, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Move on to 1.12. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to replace the current vacation and sick leave policy with a PTO policy. Where are my flashcards? Ms. Dawes.
Sorry. Yes, this has been tweaked and tweaked again, but the proposal that's up for your consideration today for the new PTO policy that would replace the current vacation and sick policy. Basically, anything in your vacation bucket as of 9/30 automatically transfers to your PTO bucket balance, and that any time that current employees have in their sick leave balance by 9/30 stays in their sick leave balance for them to use in the future. Employees affected 10/1 or after will not receive a sick leave vacation. From 10/1 after, you'll only accrue into your personal time off bucket or your paid time off bucket. The maximum cap for hours in your PTO bucket is 320. So it would be possible for new employees, if they attain that 320 or over, that would automatically be transferred into a sick leave bucket for them, so they can stash them away up for a rainy day. So nobody loses anything. I've also had the question, if you don't get your balance down below 160 by 9/30, are you going to lose it? Since the new max is 320, anything that's in your vacation bucket will transfer. You're not going to lose anything.
Nobody loses anything.
Nobody loses anything.
And for those people that did not see the workshop, because we dealt with this extensively, and I did bring flashcards.
Which you did.
But whatever you have in terms of sick leave, whatever you have in terms of your vacation, every county employee keeps the exact same benefit that they had before. But we are going to the PTO policy, and that's the paid time off. And so that if you don't use your sick leave, you can use that as paid time. What used to be sick leave, you can use that. And so we just want to make sure no one's losing anything.
Correct.
And new employees start on the new schedule.
Right.
Yes.
Any major objections from any of the department heads or anything?
I haven't heard any. All
Okay.
I've heard is positive. Once people understand it, that they're not losing anything,
Okay.
they're very much in favor of it.
Okay.
Once we got it explained, they
Right.
liked it.
I make a motion we approve the policy and it to be effective October 1st.
Yes.
Second.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Baloo, to approve and replace the current vacation and sick leave policy with the PTO policy. As presented, those in favor, raise your hand.
Effective.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Effective October 1. Okay. Item 1.13 is really informational. And this is just to make sure that the public knows and the other people here at the county know that the grant that was given Kerr County from the Texas Indigent Defense Commission for a little over $2.5 million for our Hill Country Regional Public Defender's Office. The grant was originally scheduled to take place beginning at FY 2021, 20, last October 1 what took place. But we didn't have the office open. We didn't have a chief defender. We didn't open until January 1. So we lost 3 months of what would have been available for grant period for us to be reimbursed monies that we've spent. And what TIDC has graciously done, and we really appreciate their cooperation on this, is because we got started 3 months late, they're extending that so that we get to actually charge the expenses that are going to be incurred this last quarter from September 30 or October 1 until the end of the year on the original grant. And what's important about that is the original grant was an 80-20 matching grant, meaning that the state was giving us 80% of the cost of running the office, and the 5 counties were going to share proportionately in the other 20%. We're in the process of filing our second grant, which is a sustaining grant, which will be a 1/3, 2/3 matching grant. So this represents you can do the math. This is much more favorable for the 5 counties to be able to enjoy the 80% grant from the state. And I don't think we have to take any action, but let's take it anyway.
I think we probably should because it's unclear whether we need action, so it's better to take action. I make a motion that we authorize the county judge to send a letter to TIDC requesting the 3-month extension.
Second.
A motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Moser, to send a request ratifying in writing this extension of 3 months for the original TIDC grant, as presented. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, I'm sorry, here we are, we caught up. Item 1.14, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the process for appointing a replacement for the Commissioner Precinct 2 vacancy. Ms. Bell?
I was asking the question on how much longer of your term is left?
Till December the 31st, 2022.
A year and 5
These are
months.
2-year.
1 year and 5 months, yeah.
Okay,
Out
so
of 4-year term.
what are the usual terms?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. With such a long time left on your term, wouldn't it be more appropriate to have an election for somebody to fill that position?
The law says we have to do it this way, but I'm going to defer to the county attorney, and we've got our elections administrator in the back, Mr. Reeves, to explain exactly why this works this way.
The county judge is authorized to appoint the successor for this position, and there will be, the position will be on the ballot at the same time that it otherwise would have been had Commissioner Mosier fulfilled his four-year term at that general election.
Okay. Well, but to be specific, I'm doing what she told me to do. I didn't ask to do this. And I'm doing what the law provides. I've checked with Nadine Alford, and I know Bob's in the back there. The way the law is written is if we have a vacancy on Commissioner's Court of a commissioner, if it's a county judge vacancy, then the court appoints the county judge replacement. If it's a commissioner vacancy, the county judge appoints the replacement, and they serve until the next general election. General elections are every 2 years. 22 will be the next general election. And so the successor will do that, just like when I've got Bob Reese sitting behind you. He's our tax assessor collector. He was appointed commissioner by Judge Pollard, and I believe back when Commissioner Williams' seat was vacant, Judge Tinley appointed a guy over to fill that position. That's the way it's been traditionally done. That's what the law says. We're just following what we're required to do.
How much input does the public have on who you're going to appoint?
Well, you know what? It's amazing. I bet I've had at least 24 inquiries of interest. I think I was counting them up before the weekend, and I got another one today already. So I think we've got probably 17 or 18 applicants. And for those applicants, I mean, those are formal applicants. Maybe not all 17 of them. Maybe 14 of the 17 had their formal application in. So there's been a lot of interest, a lot of activity. And I will tell you, and there are those in this room who will know what I'm speaking of when I say this, I have been inundated with emails, with calls, with endorsements from all the people sitting in this room that have any interest in this job. It has been overwhelming. And it's good.
I have a question. Could there be a town hall with some kind of debate over the applicants so people can ask questions? And then after that debate, then you could maybe make your decision at that point after a debate, rather than just here's the applicants and then you make your decision. That way the public has some input and questions to know who these people are who would like to be a commissioner.
Well, the procedure that we put in place is that we made a deadline for all applications to have been received by Monday, August the 2nd, which is a little over a week away. We still have this week to go to accept applications. And we're going to have a special Commissioners Court meeting on August the 9th. That's our first. We have a Commissioners Court meeting on August the 9th. And on that agenda, for executive session, because these are personnel matters, we're going to, this entire court is going to meet in executive session and discuss the applicants and come up with a short list. The short list will probably be 5 or 6 people, something like that. And that is with the full input and transparency with every court member participating. That list will be made public. Okay? And the intention is that because we're using the standard Kerr County employment application, which does authorize background checks, the sheriff and the chief deputy sitting in the back of the room will conduct background checks on the people on the short list so that we know that we're not putting some crook on the bench. And we were talking about that earlier, laughing about it, but we don't want to make a mistake like that. And also, what I'm planning to do is interview each one of the people on the short list. Now, in terms of the town hall, I had not anticipated a town hall. I was just planning to interview those half a dozen folks or so.
Could it be possible at that point with your short list to have a debate before you make your decision?
Their identity will be disclosed, and you're free to contact them and ask them whatever you want.
But the public should hear, rather than just me as a single person.
It will be announced publicly.
Question.
It will be in the papers. It will be announced on the website. There will be a press release on it. And if you want to contact any of the people that have made the short list, feel free to do so.
Or it could be put on another agenda and we can, I don't don't know, could it be put on an agenda and we could have a debate with these people?
I've outlined the procedure that I intend to follow. That's what I intend to do. Okay, with that, let's move on to item 1.16. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding illegal immigration issues in Kerr County. Ms. Bell.
I yield my time to Maria Hammerline.
Okay. This is Maria Hammerline, right?
That's correct. Good afternoon, and thanks for the time. Just briefly, if you are living and breathing today, you have some idea of what's going on at our southern border. If you have read, or even just kind of put your ear to the wind, you know that we just recently had another bailout crash in Mountain Home. So, I'm always a proponent of digging a well before you need it. If you need it, then that means you're really in trouble. And I don't know if you have, I'm sure you have, I'm sure Sheriff Letha has spoken to some people who are in the know. But in Kinney County, the county attorney there, Brent Smith, I believe his name is, has put together some interesting resolutions that they have passed in Kinney, they've passed in Edwards County, and it's establishing the county as a constitutional county. And I don't know, I mean, you know, I'm not here to tell you what you should do, but they have found that it's been helpful there, and a number of other counties have followed suit. So I just wanted to highlight that to you in case it might be of some value. So you could take a look at that, perhaps even contact some of these other counties that are seeing increases in numbers, because if it's happening there, it's going to come here. Most recently, the Center for Immigration Studies, which is a national organization, has put out a report on the June numbers, and we're well over 1 million people who have come across the border, 1.2 million for the month of June. So this is not going away. We just need to look at, you know, what other counties have been doing, I think, and I'll be happy to leave this material with you. And
please pass it out, Maria. I know you told me you had like 6.
I have 5 copies.
Okay.
I didn't bring the
good.
6, and I know that's probably I'll incur a hand slap for that, but I'll do that. And can I hand it to you?
And Ms. Hammerline, let me inform you that we are very much in communication. I was at a conference in Corpus Christi in May with Judge Shahan from Kinney County, and he got up and made a presentation there. I also answered the governor's call to a summit down in Del Rio, where I went with all the judges as well. We've talked about this. I've talked it over with our previous sheriff. I've talked it over with our present sheriff. We are staying abreast of the situation. What are we doing?
These go together.
Oh, yeah.
Not stapled.
Okay.
These just didn't get stapled.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, Judge. There are many of us that don't feel like the movement of the mouth by our current governor is necessarily causing any action to be taking place.
Well, I can share with you what he told us in Del Rio, and that was back in June when I went down there. There were probably 100 to 150 commissioners and county judges.
Yes.
And one of the things that the governor is doing is anybody that comes across the border he wants arrested. And you're reading about them, they're getting them for trespass and other things, especially if they cut fences. And it's putting these people in jail on these misdemeanor offenses.
Well, let me just tell you, in Kinney County, they have room for 10 people. Basically, what the governor is saying that he's doing is going to result in catch and release. There's just no way around that. So what I just want to convey is that we're going to get filled up. You know, things are going to move north. And I just think it might be a good idea to take a look at what others are doing. And just make the anything that we can do, you know.
Well, I think our sheriff's office is on top of this, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak to us. They report to us on a regular basis about what goes on.
I know. I'm just simply you know, I don't have an agenda. I just basically wanted to give you those documents. Would you take a look at and see if there's any value added with those, and then Sheriff Lee obviously is doing a great job. We know that. But
and I will share with you that as I sit down with the county judge in Medina County, the county judge in Kinney County, the county judge in Edwards County, the county judge in Kimball County, and Kendall County. And we all went through, and we can see the immigration patterns. And for some reason, they like 41, they don't like 173. And the sheriff's shaking his head. And I can tell you that I've gotten several phone calls from Edwards County letting us know that they're coming our way.
Yeah.
And they catch them out there.
The other thing I would just point out that the NGOs are not really helping us here, meaning organizations that take in refugees. They're all refugees. So there might be a large number being brought into our counties under cover of darkness that we don't know about, which could increase problems with crime. And the sheriff already knows that. But the point is that there are many of us in the community that know, but we are in the know, you know, more than some would think. And we just want to make sure everyone else is listening.
Thank you for sharing the information. I can tell you that I was at an MHDD board meeting a couple of months ago, and the county judge in Val Verde County announced that they were taking them by the busloads to San Antonio. And I privately spoke with him after the meeting that, by golly, better not be sending him those busloads to Kerr County because he's going to answer to me for it. So we've had that conversation.
They sent them here before.
We know about that. And
There was a recent bus that went to Los Dos Amigos. There were a whole lot of people that got off the bus, about 35 people between, all males between about 25 and 35, and they were all wearing pajamas and backpacks. I don't know what happened except they got off the bus. I don't know. They just ate, got on the bus, and went someplace else. I don't know the rest of the story. Someone else might know the story, but I don't. But that's what.
But thank you for sharing
Sheriff's
that,
officers
because
shaking their head,
A lot
they
of
don't
people
know.
feel the way you do, and me included, for sure. For both of them.
But I can assure you that our sheriff's office is staying on top of the situation.
And all we can really do on the issue is budgetarily support the sheriff, and we're doing that.
And pass a resolution, if we have one.
Right.
But thank you for sharing the resolutions.
All good.
Which is one of the agenda items. On there, it says to not become a sanctuary county.
Right.
Or,
Good.
I don't know if we are.
Say what?
No.
We're not.
Something about sanctuary.
Yeah, there are other resolutions that they wrote, and one of them, I didn't hand it to you, but, because I don't have copies, but I'll email it to you. It's basically establishing, resolution declaring the county not a sanctuary county for the harboring of illegal aliens. So I'll email it to you.
That was in there.
Yeah,
All of us, as elected officials, and the sheriff too, has taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and its laws and the laws of the state of Texas. And we're not going to have a sanctuary anything. We're going to enforce the laws.
There are sheriffs that are helping people come across that river.
It will not happen in Kerr County.
Thank you.
No, we put one in jail this morning. So let me update y'all because Chris and I have been up since 3 o'clock this morning. So it's a very complicated subject. Chris and I were down there for 3 years. It's very frustrating. I just want to make it clear it's not illegal in state law to be an undocumented person. Okay, it's first. So our hands are kind of tied there. But it has picked up. I haven't had a chance really. I did email the judge early this morning on 41, unfortunately. I don't know why. I guess 3 vehicles coming through there about 2:38 this morning. One of our deputies turned on him. Of course, he's one deputy. There's only about 5 out, which you have to understand. There's still calls going on. It turns on him, stops one on the interstate. The other 2 keep going. Our deputy apprehended a suspect, a smuggler, and five other ones. That smuggler is in jail right now because that is illegal. Okay. The other one goes on. We call KPD. KPD jumps on them, pursuit, normal every day. Wrecked out, got 2 of them. We called on to Kendall County. Kendall County was able to make a stop and get 9 more. So just kind of update you, we will put them in jail every chance we get, but it's at this time, you know, we're waiting to see what the government comes up with. It's very tough. I mean, I'm trying to keep up with it. When we're down there, it's kind of catch and release. You know, all that work, you catch them and you send them right back. It's basically just getting processed. It's very frustrating. But that's kind of where we're at today. You know, we'll entertain that. I talked to sheriffs, going to the sheriff's conference next week. I'm sure that's going to be one of the main topics. I'm sure me and Chris just got some training on this, but just so you all know, it's very frustrating. I mean, it's a tough subject. I mean, as far as the sheriff in this county, you know, what I do is try to protect everybody. That's my goal. As they come through, you know, we try to, but you know, it's a tough subject, and you know, we'll keep you posted on it.
And we've had public discussion this too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff. I asked for what it's costing the taxpayers to have in jail, and I'll say the word illegal aliens. It's $100,000 a year. And it's big, and it's ridiculous. So.
Yes, those are ones that have committed crimes. But what we're going to start doing, I sure me and Chris started talking this morning, we're going to try to keep better stats. Just to give a number, we'll probably never get reimbursed, but what is it actually costing? I had 5 guys out there all morning. Other calls are coming in, you know, so fortunately Border Patrol came down. It was an hour later. But, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we got. Sure. That's a big reason for this special response team I'm developing, because I feel it's only a matter of time before something a little more happens.
Do you always inform ICE when you get those guys?
Yes, sir. Yeah, they came pick them up this morning. Like I said, it's about an hour. Normally, it's the pursuit where the whole Army's coming to us. One of my deputies, 2:38 in the morning, typical time for them, turned on 3 vehicles, a little suspicious. One of them's leaned down, but one made a mistake and threw a cigarette butt out the window, so we got that one. We got that one. And that person is in jail right now for smuggling. I mean, that's what the whole goal is, to try to get those. The other people, you know, they're just trying to get over to work, but I mean, the smugglers we will prosecute.
Sheriff, any idea what will happen to those that ICE picked up?
They'll take them back. I mean, they've got so many different places. I think Dilly's one of the biggest one they've opened up. They basically process them and send them back. I mean, it's like a never closing door.
Sure, revolving door.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Does Dilly hold, what, 600?
I don't know the exact amount. I know they've just reopened it. I know they're trying to get staffing. That may be the capability, but what they can hold now, I know they're having a lot of trouble getting staffing.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your efforts very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
He's not on the agenda, isn't he?
No, we have to go back to item 1.23. We've got a few more items here. Sheriff, I'm going to call 1.23, 24, and 25 at the same time here. Let me just read them off. 1.23 is consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a $10,000 donation from a citizen to the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund. 1.24 is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a $500 donation from Grimes Funeral Chapel for the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund. And 1.25 is to consider and discuss and take appropriate action to approve a $250 donation from TDF Capital Management LLC, Apache Springs, for the Sheriff's Special Response Team Fund. Sheriff Blake.
Yes, I'm looking for y'all's approval to accept these funds. This goes back to all this trafficking. Also, I intend to use this unit to help us monitor that. That's kind of why I reorganized the department and made a special operations division, which that'll be one of their primary duties, along with this new analyst we're going to be getting to kind of track this a little bit better. But basically, I'm looking y'all's approval to accept these 3 donations.
Move for approval to accept the donations.
Sorry.
Motion been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Blue to accept all 3 donations in the amount of $10,500 and $250 for a total of $10,750. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
1.26, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve closing Jail Project Fund 17 by moving funds to DSF 61. Ms. Shelton.
Yes. The county jail expansion project, the last one that was done, was financed with the Series 2015 limited tax bonds. The amount left in that project fund is about $146,000, just a little bit shy of that. The project has been completed. The current principal balance of the debt is $12,235,000. The funds remaining in the project account can be transferred to the Debt Service Fund, DSF, per the debt documents. Transferring this amount will reduce the money needed from property taxes to pay next year's debt service. The county attorney has reviewed this and stated it is authorized and legal per the debt documents, and the request is for closing Fund 17, the jail expansion project, by moving the remaining funds to pay toward jail expansion debt.
We can't use the money for anything else. This is the win-win.
It's a win-win. The project is completed.
Okay, I move for approval.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Blue, to approve transferring the funds from the Jail Project Fund 17 to DSF 61 as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.27, discussion regarding upgrading Kerr County website. Commissioner Harris.
Yes, I don't think anybody in this room or in the county would say that we have a really good website for the county. In fact, it's not very good at all. It's not user-friendly or what have you. And we've all known that for a while, and we haven't done anything. And what kind of triggered this, I was talking to Bob Reeves in the tax office, and he had initiated conversation with somebody to get a website to make his better. And I thought, golly, we need to do something for the whole county. And so I started talking to Clint Morris here in town, and also reviewing, going online and looking at some of the other counties, what they're doing and who they're using. And I've initiated talks with TAC. They do about 180 of the 254 counties. And, you know, the price range, I, after looking into all this and dealing with 3 different ones that do this for counties, I think it's going to be best that we have a workshop on this at some point where we can compare apples to oranges and what have you. Because there's Cadillac up here, and just where's your price range and what are your needs. And so I think that's what we need to do.
So you're proposing a workshop?
Yes, I am.
When you have the workshop, you just might mention, it'd be great to have 3 samples that you look at and have them on the screen so that we can kind of look at them and talk about things we like and don't like.
I agree.
It's also going to be very important to have one that works well on a phone. So some websites you go on to and they're great if you're sitting at a computer and not so good on the phone. And they take forever to load and all that, so that'll be important too.
Yeah. Well, that, you know, I think that's what we can all 5 look at and kick around and decide upon.
And you're volunteering to be the point person, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. And I make a motion that we do it.
Is there a date that anybody wants to pick out for a workshop? I mean,
Well, I don't know.
I like them to all fall on Mondays personally,
Yeah,
be off
I like them.
Monday.
We do
Well, let's
this.
see, we don't have to do a court action instead of workshop. We can just
Yeah,
do that.
okay.
Right.
Jody can kind of coordinate and look
All right.
when we have schedules and things.
I have a question, general question. Is this gonna be in funding from this year's budget or next?
Well, we haven't got that far.
So then it will be later on, okay.
And this,
Budget's about to get frozen.
so everybody understands, this is not IT. This is, a
Right.
website's a much different thing. IT doesn't design websites, they maintain them.
Their hands are full as it is.
Yeah. So that's why it hadn't been done till now.
Right.
So do you-
And it probably
do you take
shouldn't
any
come
action?
out of that budget either.
Yeah, this is just a
Separate deal.
Yeah, I think we probably do need to put it in the budget though,
Yeah.
because it's going to be done in the next fiscal year. The work's going to be done, and imagine the people that do it are going to
It's just like the salary study was. We put that in the budget and
So what's a high-end number that you got?
50.
That's about what I figured.
Yeah.
So if that's
50.
a placeholder in the budget, then we'd be in great shape.
Yeah. And then that's the top, and then others are on down. Okay. I'm gonna share an email. Well, anything I get from all 3 of these, I'm gonna share with Jody, and she can put out to the rest of it.
What Jody does, we don't ask.
Yeah. So, that's it, just information.
Okay, very good. Next item on the agenda is 1.28. Consider discuss and take appropriate action to approve the interlocal agreement between the Regional Public Defender Office, local government corporation in Kerr County to represent indigent capital murder defendants. This is the Lubbock Public Defender's Office. They've been doing this for some time. They have most of the state insured. It has been a lifesaver. There were counties that were filing bankruptcy because they couldn't fund the capital murder defense costs. And Lubbock came along and put together this public defender's office that's been substantially subsidized by the state. And they provide a service to us. We pay a premium for it, just like an insurance policy. And if we get a capital murder case, they cover the expense. And it is absolutely essential that we do this.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's a good deal.
Motion by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Blue to approve the interlocal agreement with the Regional Public Defender's Office for capital murder indigent defense.
Yeah. Can I ask this question?
Sure.
I know I can ask it. My understanding is that our local PDO, because of, has been asked to handle one of these cases. And the reason is that this one's already handling one side, and they wanted the separation of defense counsel.
Are you talking about two defendants?
I think there's, two defendants, one murder. This group is handling one, and my understanding is that they have asked our local PDO to provide the defense for the other one. Is there a mechanism in this for us to get reimbursed for that, or how do we need to proceed on that part of it? I wonder.
Well, I have no idea. That's a good question. But so the public understands what we're talking about is when you have co-defendants in a capital murder case like this, the same lawyers can't represent both of the defendants. It's a conflict of interest. And we've got one where the Lubbock PDO is representing one, which means they can't represent the other. And our newly formed 5-county Public Defender's Office has been asked to represent the other capital murder defendant.
Yeah, and I believe it's out of Medina County where it comes out of.
So what is the question then?
The question is, how do we get reimbursed? We shouldn't have to, locally, we shouldn't have to pay for that defense.
Because it's here, we would have to pay the Lubbock group or something.
The Lubbock group would pay a premium too. I think the Lubbock group should pay us back for the local one. But
I think we just have to check into that.
We're an appointed lawyer from the Lubbock group. We're contributing to the lawyers.
Anyway.
I haven't really studied the interlocal agreement on that regard, and I think what I would ask our county attorney, if she'd take a look at it, I'm happy to sit down and do it with you, but there should be some kind of provision in that interlocal agreement that addresses when they can't take the case.
Right. So, anyway.
And I'm assuming there is.
Yeah.
But we'll look into it.
I'm bringing it up because before it was a fleeting thought. And I know that's the case, which incidentally, not capital murder necessarily, but our local PDO has 8 murder cases already.
Wow.
That they're handling. Which is a lot.
So we've got a motion and a second to approve the interlocal agreement. Have we voted on it?
No.
I don't think we have. So those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. 2.1, pay bills.
Invoices for today's consideration, $878,298.61.
Why so much this time? It's usually 500,000.
It's been running closer to 800, 750 at that, a million.
That's inflation. Move for approval.
Second.
Just want to make inflation comment.
Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Budget amendments.
Yes, we have 8 of them today. Non-departmental, maintenance, road and bridge, county court, county clerk, elections, capital projects, and also certifying sheriff office donations for the special response team.
These are all just typical budget year-end transfers.
The autopsy and inquest, that is, how many does that represent?
How
How many is that amount paid for?
We had 21,000 in autopsy and inquest just this month alone. I don't know how much each one is. I think I've seen bills from 3,000, 4,000.
Yeah, like 3,000 pieces.
I was thinking it was something like that.
They're more than that now.
Yeah.
So but you've got an odd number here, so it was because money was transferred over to cover miscellaneous.
I don't know where we're gonna end up, and that's about all I can find in the non-departmental. If we need more than that, it'll have to come from contingency, but we're using the buckets of money that we know we don't need at the moment.
Move for approval. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the budget amendments as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Late bills.
Yes, they amounted to $91,808.78.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Baloo, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the late bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Auditor reports.
Yes, we completed our internal audit for Precinct 2, Justice of the Peace, and we ask that you accept it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve the auditor reports on Precinct 2 as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Monthly reports, 2.5.
Yes, June 2021 monthly reports. Environmental Health Director Ashley Batters. This report was actually submitted with the monthly reports from July 12, 2021, but the clerk inadvertently did not put it on the cover sheet to be read into the record. So now you're getting it. Was I supposed to read that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Animal Control Services Director Reagan Gibbons. County Auditor Tanya Shelton. Constable Precinct 3 Ken Wilkie. County Clerk Jackie Dowdy. And fines, judgments, and jury fees collected as amended JP4 Bill Ragsdale. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the monthly reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Court orders.
We have our court orders from July 12th meetings, numbers 38800 through 38820. And we have court order from our special meeting on July 19th, 38821. They're all listed in order. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the court orders as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Information agenda, 3.1, status reports from department heads. There being none, let's move on to item 3.2, status reports from elected officials. There being none, let's move on to 3.3, status reports from liaison commissioners.
Yes, the extension. Looks like we may be getting an extension agent before long. They're going to have some interviews next week, and then narrow it down to maybe 2 and have a final. So getting close. They had over 20 applicants. So looking good.
The interest is good.
Yes.
Good. I'll report on juvenile probation. Most of you will remember that the CIP, the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, was looking at the old juvenile facility that we had over there, the 48-bed, and we were trying to repurpose that for storage. And that was the original plan. We have been approached by several not-for-profit as well as for-profit and even TJJD, Texas Juvenile Justice Department, about leasing that space. There's an acute shortage of available juvenile beds right now. And we have a 48-bed facility over there that's original purpose was to do exactly that. And we were talking about putting in some cyclone fencing and locks and everything to set up and make it for storage. But we may actually be able to lease it.
It's a shame to waste. That's a specific type of facility.
Yeah.
It's a shame to waste that.
And you'll recall that once upon a time, probably about the time that you and I got on the court, there was discussion about possibly selling that building. And we tried to get appraisals on it, and we can't get anybody to appraise it. So a lease is the best way for us to go, because if we're going to sell it, we have to have an appraisal before we can sell it. And looking at the space over there, that's just almost 20,000 square feet, with the going rate of $15 a square foot per year, just for Class A office space, not even special purpose. We would probably be looking at significant income.
That'd be good.
So just let you know we're working on that. And
Good.
Jason's doing a great job on that whole thing.
As he always does.
Any other liaison commissioner reports? Okay, I don't believe we have anything for executive session.
No, sir, that's good.
So, at long last, 10 minutes of 1 o'clock, we are adjourned.